June 11th.
I always forget if it vibrates up or down.
Are we waiting for Mike or you wanna?
We're going to start.
Okay.
Good evening. The May 21st, 2018 agenda meeting of the Milltown Borough Council will now come to order. Will the clerk please call roll?
Council President Dixon?
Present.
Councilman Farkas?
Here.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Present.
Councilman Legati?
Here.
Councilwoman Mayer? Here. Councilman Revelinsky?
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 present.
Thank you. Will the clerk please read the meeting statement?
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this regular business meeting of the Borough Council was provided by the adoption of a resolution and the posting, filing, and forwarding of a copy of the same to the official Borough newspaper, Home News Tribune, and Star Ledger publishing companies. Public participation in this meeting will be permitted during public hearings and after the agenda of scheduled matters has been completed.
Thank you. We will dispense with items 4 and 5 for now till the regular meeting, and we'll go right into items for discussion. First up is the 2018 New Jersey Smart Workplace Award and other individual programs for residents KMM offers.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I put that on the agenda. I forgot the award. On Wednesday morning, I was invited to Keep Middlesex Moving, their annual meeting, and we had done the paint the pavement. The chief also pursued the safe routes to school, as well as bicycle safety, and of course our last campaign is a Street Smart campaign. So we were bronze level recipients for the 2018 New Jersey Smart Workplace Award for public safety and pedestrian safety. And the other programs that they offer, I can always certainly send an email, or we can put printed copies out on the table. They have a van pooling service for corporations to van pool and coordinate that with the other various partners in case it's, some people have this from years ago. And in Middlesex County, we are like #1 in the state with our van pooling. Also, they have a New Jersey ride share, and the New Jersey ride share is a car pooling service. And also with that, that's no cost, of course, and it helps, keep the roadways a little bit more efficient as well, too. In addition, they do have if you're looking for employment, they have 3 bus passes in case you're interviewing. They would provide that to you. Once you've secured work with an employer, you can get up to 5 bus passes for your first week of work. So in case anyone out there needs this information, feel free to reach out to me, dkerber@milltownborough.com. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for the councilwoman? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Next, grants update and sustainable Jersey certification.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I have been researching the grants. Some of the grants we're able to collaborate with possibly the library, other departments to do educational outreach. If we're focusing on utility, whether it be water conservation, electric conservation, or we want to reach out in other ways throughout the community. In terms of a green team, they were looking to do some outreach as well. So we can combine our efforts and put our thoughts together to do a great narrative and apply for some of the grants. Some of them are restricted just to certain states or certain counties. And I've reached out to several, committees as well as partners in town, the police department, the Board of Ed, and library. So we will look into that for the June 11th meeting and throughout the rest of the year. Most of the grants go from June 15th through December 31st. So we'll have more details then.
Great. Is that it?
Oh, and Sustainable Jersey certification. We've worked on it. I have some information that I received from Ralph for waste and recycling, so that's going to give us about 65 points. In terms of safe routes to school, that's going to give us additional points. We're looking to really get our certification this year, and I think it's possible that we will.
That's good news.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it for 2. Yeah.
Any questions for the councilwoman? Seeing none, we shall move on.
Okay.
United Methodist Church Community Service accomplishments.
Yes, yesterday we all met, and Councilman Farkas and I participated with the church members. They went around town. They went to several locations. Wine and Design was one of them. Rabbit's Den. We also went to the senior center. I took the scouts that were just waiting to do something else. We headed down to the senior center and planted some flowers in their planters. In addition, they've done some cleaning, some painting throughout some of the other towns. In Crabio Home for Funerals, they planted flowers in the front there. She supplied them, and it really was a great day. They picked up some debris throughout their travels, and I know they went into other local businesses to help out wherever they could. Mostly cleaning and the window cleaning as well.
Beautiful. Any questions for the councilwoman? Okay, pool update.
That was me. I know you want to hear somebody else. Well, the pool update, I was working with the green teams in terms of getting some of the flowers planted there this year. And I just spoke with Principal Veet. He's going to get some of the JK students to help me. We're going to put some of the flowers just to beautify it a little bit in the entranceway of the pool area as an extension of our, providing flowers in the area. Also, I was just wondering, I think for such a change of employees, I think it'd be a good idea if we purchase a cash register machine for the entrance gate so that things can be double checked, and I think that might be a good consideration for council to go ahead and have that department go ahead and purchase one. This way they have a tabulation, they can double check their printing from what was received and the receipts, because it's really new staff, and I think it'll be beneficial for all of us.
Sounds good. Any questions for the councilwoman? Is that it for your pool update?
Yes.
Okay. Next, miscellaneous engineering items. I don't see the engineer present at this time. I'm sure he could take care of that during the regular meeting, whatever he may have. Okay, at this time, I will open audience comments. Please remember that comments are for things discussed at the agenda meeting. So with that, I will open audience comments. Seeing none, I will close audience comments. I will accept a motion for adjournment.
So be it.
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Dixon, seconded by Councilwoman Murray. Councilwoman Gerber. That we, man, I've been here too long.
You had a flashback.
Yeah, a flashback to 1994. Sorry about that. Councilwoman Gerber, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll adjourn for, say, about 5 to 7 minutes. We'll see you back here at 7:15. Good evening. The May 21st, 2018 meeting of the Milltown Borough Council will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Dixon?
Here.
Councilman Farkas?
Here.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Present.
Councilman Legati?
Here.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Here.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 present.
Thank you. Will the clerk please read the meeting statement?
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this regular business meeting of the Borough Council was provided by the adoption of a resolution and the posting, filing, and forwarding of a copy of the same to the official borough newspapers, Home News Tribune, and Star Ledger publishing companies. Public participation in this meeting will be permitted during public hearings and after the agenda of scheduled matters has been completed.
Thank you. Please rise for a moment of silence, followed by a salute to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first on this evening's agenda, we have a few public hearings. We have 2 scheduled for resolutions 18-152 and 18-153. The resolutions have been published according to law. Copies have been made available to public prior to this evening's meetings. Would ask anyone wishing to speak in favor or against the resolutions when recognized, please clearly state your name and address for the record. With that, will the clerk please read resolution 18-152 by title?
Amendment to the 2018 municipal budget.
Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing for this resolution. Does anyone have anything they wish to say for or against? As a reminder, this is the public hearing for the amendment only.
Phil Zambrana, 40 Van Loo Avenue. Just wanted to check two things on the amendment. The amendment has a match. Is that correct? To the match?
The grant?
Yes.
There, yeah, it has an in-kind match.
There's an in-kind match?
You don't have to actually build it into the budget.
Right, but how are you tracking it?
CFO, I only know that there's a match. The CFO would be responsible for tracking that.
Yeah, I understand that. Are you standing in for the CFO tonight or not?
The CFO is...
He can't stand in for the CFO.
Okay, so
because
who's going to answer the question then?
Does anyone on the council have any answer for that question?
Are you talking about you're talking about the OEM grant?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
It can be cash match or in-kind labor, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a monetary donation match to it, and it's logged by hours from the OEM coordinator or any other person putting in to offset those salaries.
So it is to offset salaries, right?
Yeah. It's
So
also,
we've
that's what's the intended use.
So we've already received the money. Are there any reporting requirements? Quarterly?
The cash is in the bank,
Yes.
Yep.
and technically right now, it's still not, until we adopt this budget, you know,
It's not in the line item yet.
it's not in yet, but once it goes in, then...
But we know it's going to go in. So again, is there quarterly reporting?
I don't remember if it's quarterly reporting. I don't have the grant information on top with me at this time, but I do believe you have to report at some point. I don't know if it's an annual report or if it's a quarterly report, how they manage it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public portion and ask the council for their consideration.
Move that this resolution be adopted.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Council President Dixon, seconded by Councilman Revelinsky, that the resolution, if I may, is adopted on second and final reading and published according to law. Are we going through that?
I don't think, does it?
I don't think we need that.
Jerry, does it have to be?
It actually was already approved at the April 23rd, the last meeting, so it was approved. We've had the public hearing as required by law on it. If you close the hearing, then the only other action we need to take, if the council desires, is to then adopt the budget.
Okay, well, we have to have a vote only for the municipal budget, and that falls under the next resolution, correct?
That would be correct.
So we do not need to pass the resolution for
In my opinion, no.
the amendment.
It's already been voted on.
It's already been voted
It's
on.
been voted on, it's been approved by Trenton, and the next step is the final adoption.
Okay, duly noted. With that, would the clerk please read Resolution 18-153?
Adoption of the municipal budget.
Okay, you've heard the reading. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we just have to take a motion on that and call the roll. Okay, you've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
Move that this resolution be adopted.
Second.
A motion by Council President Dixon, seconded by Councilman Revelinsky, that the resolution is adopted. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Yes, actually, I do have, Mr. Mayor. I was curious because I know that you had said earlier in the year that you were going to have a majority and each have the council liaison or the chair of the committee do a majority and a minority opinion. So I don't think we've been getting regular reports about, you know, what's been going on. And I was curious if the other members of the council that aren't on the finance committee are really aware of what they're voting on tonight, if they've really gotten any detailed budget from the finance committee. Have you, Dorian, seen any budget?
We had
Have you, Nick?
that was distributed.
Have you
I just
gotten
have
to really look into it? I mean, or ask questions about it?
I just got the standard budget that's given to all the council members, but I didn't get a detailed report of anything.
Right. So after, I mean, so the CFO isn't here. There's been other things that, I mean, I've been fortunate to be in the meetings all along, but there have been a few questions that I've even had that have come up afterward. I mean, we met with the department heads, we look over the budget. However, for financial planning purposes, and Mr. Stankiewicz, maybe you can help us with this. I mean, what happens, we don't really see we don't have a long-range plan, which we discussed a lot in our committee meetings, where I said, you know, we needed to be mindful of the debt that we're taking on. Can we do anything to plan for next year? And yet, so here we have the budget. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about that came out in the water meeting was how do we plan for the and this was just in the water sewer fund. I recall that you said starting next year, we'll be paying $157,000 for the principal, and starting this year, $66,000 per year interest. Right. So I guess my question, even just as not even as a finance committee person, as a layman or a resident, is where's that money coming from? I mean, that's a lot when we already have a tight budget now. So I mean, and I don't think we've really addressed that in the finance committee. I mean, so this is we have the budget, and I guess one of the other questions is did we do any sort of, because, you know, I don't know what you did last year, did we do any financial analyses of the debt service that we carry in town and how it's going to impact us going forward?
Well, there's going to be impact, if you're referring to the Public Works project. We all know, starting from back in June, I believe, we knew there was going to be impact and it was going to be phased in. There's a partial phase in this year. Right. That's built into the $300,000 additional that you need, and then the rest of it will phase in the following year.
When you say partial, what can you percentage that?
Well, it was, I think it was $66,000 of the 157 is built into this year's budget.
But that was only for the water sewer fund. So
that's correct.
What is the total for the water sewer, electric, and general revenue?
It's going to take me a few minutes to dig it out.
Because just to tell, another thing to talk about was that we had talked a lot about in the finance committee that we sort of rely on the revenue from the electric fund to carry us in the general fund and the other funds. So that I'm concerned that if we, you know, have to start paying more, that's not going to be enough.
You're aware that the budgets here do utilize virtually all the surplus that you have.
Correct.
Okay. And you're also aware that there's always a public outcry when you raise taxes, when you raise rates.
Correct.
So, again, the spending plan for the Water Sewer Utility Fund is really targeted for really just to get through this year. It is also known, and it was known, that there's going to be an increase, okay, in the debt service related to the building.
Right.
Trina, actually in municipalities, saving for capital purposes costs money. Okay.
No, I understand.
You're going to raise the rates. If you want to start building capital reserves and having a capital plan, it costs money. It raises rates even higher. Okay. And
why is that?
In a great world, but well, you're going to start tucking cash away. The revenue has to come from somewhere. And right now, your primary revenue source is electric rates, water sewer rates, and tax rates. So, I mean, you could have a financial plan. We have a minimum 3-year capital budget here. I know that the borough engineer has documents that show quite expensive long-range water plan, sewer plan, and then other plans, okay, that the numbers are just staggering, that no one could provide enough to finance those. So it becomes more short-range management than anything is actually what the MO is. And by the way, a lot of towns operate that way. Your town is not unlike a lot of other towns. You have no rateable growth, okay? Correct. In fact, your ratables are decreasing in dollar-wise, and your costs are going up. So it's very difficult to manage and to even go out too far on a spending plan and or any revenue plan.
Correct.
So it becomes almost just by process, it becomes almost annual municipal management. Okay, and a lot of factors figure in. For example, the utility fund. Part of the problem with the utility fund last year was consumption was down. That consumption going down triggers a problem because you don't have the money in the bank and you can't anticipate it. Electric, same thing. Okay, so yeah, a lot depends on weather, a lot depends on consumption. So, but I do have, I don't have it, it's going to take me a while to dig it out, but in all three funds, there will be impact on the debt service because of the building.
Approximately.
I don't even know.
Oh, I mean, you figure if it's 157 in the water sewer, is it one, double that?
It's a lot more in the electric, and the bulk of it is being funded, because the bulk of it is a general appropriation, is being funded by the current fund, which has about, I think the numbers were around a 12 or 13 cent impact. Part of that's phased in this year.
Per year?
Per year, per year on the tax rate.
Okay, so starting, and
But
that's
remember-
starting in 2019.
But remember, that's only temporary. That doesn't last for 20 years. As we discussed, your debt service is on a plateau in each fund, okay? And I'll give you an example. In the current fund, your debt service is on a plateau until 25. In 26, it drops off 300,000. That was before this bond. This was before the project. So your debt service then in 28 into 29 drops to nothing. So the impact of the 12 or 13 cents, whatever number it is only temporary.
Right.
Other projects come along,
Correct.
they feed into it. It's just a matter of planning your debt service.
Well, that was sort of my initial question. Have we planned our debt service?
Well, your budgets are annually driven, okay?
So that's
We do
a
know
no.
what our permanent debt service is, okay? So to say that there's a written plan on the debt service, no, I don't
Okay.
have that. Your CFO doesn't have that either. I believe, I can't speak for her, she understands the ramifications in this town of A, no growth in ratables, and B, inflation, and as well as pressure to keep rates down and also to maintain minimal capital projects. So,
Well, yeah, and therein lies the problem, right? Because to maintain minimal capital projects doesn't help us get clean water. It doesn't help us with a lot of things. So, you know, that was part of what we went around in the Finance Committee about. I mean,
right, that's correct, but remember, building reserves and providing for ideal conditions in capital project costs money. So anything we talk about, or you talk about anywhere, and not just here, when anybody has an idea about something that they want to do, there's impact.
so when
There's always impact.
When we took on the 15, with the municipal project.
Yes.
There was the impact in the budget, you know, there's some analysis over.
We knew
if
the impact at the public hearing, okay, when we had the ordinance public hearing, I think that was sometime in the middle of June. So we knew the impact then for all three funds. There was impact, okay? We weren't going to hide the fact it's maybe the second or third largest project in the history of the town, at least at that dollar level. So absolutely, no governing body would have a hearing on an ordinance without knowing the impact of something that big. So yeah, we knew the impact on all three of those funds, and I believe the impact in the electric fund was minimal. I believe the rate was like 3% of the billings. In the water, again, if you recall, I don't know if you were here that night, but what I said that night was that, I'm not saying that the rates are going up, what I said was that the impact could be, for example, in the electric, I believe it was 3% of the overall billings. That's not saying there was going to be an increase. Same with the water, I believe that was 7%, and no one said there was going to be an increase. At the time, when we had that was June of 17, we had no idea where our finances were going to end up in 2017.
Right.
And you really can't measure it until you close your records out because of the time frame between when you bill, when you collect. So it's very difficult to measure your operations too prematurely. Electric, you can usually get a handle on after you know and you feel it right after Labor Day. Water is a little different because there's a little bit of a lag time between when you bill. So, you know, the capital aspect of the Public Works project, yeah, that was all discussed thoroughly in the public forum.
So going forward, I guess the concern that I have is that, you know, how much impact can we put onto our limited resources here? You know, as you said, the ratables are going down. It's strictly paid by the taxpayers. So, you know, we're changing over to a new CFO. Do we need to do some sort of a deep dive into the impact of our
Debt service.
debt service?
Our debt service is pretty well fixed until, until the bonds that we just sold will mature. So we know where those numbers are. Okay?
Correct, but we can't assume that there won't be another, we're going to need to bond for if there's a forced main break or if
Absolutely, you're going to have projects, and the point is, because of the lack of growth and
Right.
because of pressure to keep rates down, okay, everything costs.
Correct, but then when do you get to the point where you're
In the clear,
getting a bad bond rating because you have so much debt service?
well, we don't have a bad bond rating here.
No, not yet. Until we have
and the bond rating agencies, they change as the culture changes, as spending patterns change. They have their own criteria, so I don't know that's where you have a good bond rating here because you have good economics, quite frankly, of your residents. Okay, so it's not an immediate worry.
Exactly, but we have the good economics of residents, but so that means anytime that anything happens, it goes straight back to them. And obviously, as you said, everybody wants it to stay the same, and it's not realistic to think that, but how much could we as council members try and anticipate that to alleviate some of that?
Well, quite frankly, I don't see any alleviation on the radar screen, okay, unless there is a major change in the rateable base. And by the way, when you have a major change in the rateable base, it drags along with it more costs, okay? If you had, 500 acres somewhere and some guy wants to build a development, yeah, you're going to need to have more officers, you need more public works.
We don't have that.
You don't have that, okay?
Right.
So, every budget here is extremely well thought out, and a lot of time is put in by both the administrative staff and as well as the council people, because they know. I mean, there's no easy budget here any year. So, yeah, it's great to have a plan, but it costs money.
But it costs money not to have a plan, too, because then you're paying interest and,
Well, you're always
Yeah.
costing money. You can't
course.
put aside $5 million now and expect the taxpayers to put in for $5 million so we have it for a rainy day. And then what if other things come up and we say, by the way, we raised rates because we're going to build a new park, and then we don't get to it because other things come up? I mean, that's irresponsible too. So you do gradual increases, you cover things, you constantly reevaluate your debt and reevaluate your debt service. And, we do have one outstanding situation in town, which is Ford Avenue. And until that comes through, we don't know what sort of expansion or extra work we're going to have to put in. So we do what we can without putting too much of a burden on the residents. But it's always going to cost money, whether it's now or down the road. It's always going to cost the residents money because we don't have any other corporations in town that we can throw the bill at.
And Ford Avenue, remember, we have significant liens outstanding that would be awesome to have in our bank account. And
Right.
B, the litigation fees, which we have no control of, are quite extensive. So we have a double hit, lack of revenue plus an incremental expense. So there's a big void there as well that has really conflicted, I think, every governing body going back here probably 10 years.
Right.
Maybe even longer.
And Mr.
So-
Stankiewicz, sorry, if I may I know during the discussions, which confused me a little bit during our budget hearings, but I get the gist of now, is that we operate on a 2-year rolling budget. So we can only base our budget for the following year on what happened, not the previous year, but the year before that,
Yeah.
because that's what the final numbers are in on. So
Correct.
you're always conservative because you can only deal with the data of 2 years ago. While we can develop a budget on paper, the state will not allow us to put our next budget based on 2017. So the 2018 budget can't be based on 2017 spending. It can only be based on what the year end was in 2016. So we're always a year behind, playing sort of catch up. So we have to be conservative on how much we spend and how much we plan for, because we don't know.
And keep in mind, we
what
have
the
a
final's
levy
gonna
cap as well as an appropriation cap.
Correct.
So there's already statutorily built-in limitations, except the levy cap doesn't affect debt service. Okay, so the appropriation cap and the levy cap are outside of debt service. And it would be wonderful that if you could do capital projects here And without having to go to bonds and notes or go, but the setup here is not such that you can do that. And very few towns in New Jersey, in fact in the country, are set up where they can actually go do a boatload of capital projects and pay cash for that. So we're not out of the norm here.
Right,
You have the same struggles that a lot of your neighboring towns have. And in Middlesex, where there's some towns that have no growth, but inflation, a lot of towns are in the same boat.
Jerry, can I ask a question here?
I'll try and answer it, Nick.
You said that this project gets phased in over this year and next year.
Right.
Without getting too complicated or throwing a lot of numbers at me, what percentage of the project is phased in this year? And what percentage of the project is phased in next year?
It's about...
And could we have done this all in 1 year, or it has to be done for statutory
Because the way the
reasons?
bond sale is timed, okay, bond interest payments are due every 6 months. So the bids were taken in late April, okay, and the bond closing was actually on the 10th of May, I believe. So with the current fund, the first 6 months interest payment is due on November 1, or, excuse me, November 15th. So half of the year's interest is built into that budget. I seem to recall the number might have been $150,000 in interest in the current fund budget. The other two also have 6 months worth of interest built into them, okay? And they were factored into the original budget as introduced. So the estimates worked out to be pretty good when we introduced the budget. So yeah, I would say 50%, well, no, I shouldn't say that. About a third of the current fund is phased in. Remember, also, the principal that's due on a bond sale is due 1 year from the original date of issue. So on May 15th of 19, the first principal payment on that bond sale will be due, and the second interest payment. So on May 15th of 19, a principal payment and an interest payment are due, and then November 15th of 19, another 6 month interest is due. So it will ratchet up in 19. It ratchets up to its natural level in 2019.
Okay, and I don't know if you could even do this, but my initial question, what percentage of the project is phased in this year? And is it 50% this year?
Were you talking about the debt service or the project?
The project.
Well, the project is an engineering thing. I know that the contract was awarded. I don't know anything other than that. Okay, I do know that the money is in place for the contractor. Beyond that, I don't know about the timetable, but
okay,
debt service-wise, like I said, probably 1/3 of the total increment is phased in the 18 budget. The balance will be ratcheted in the 19 budget.
So 2/3, we're taking a bigger hit next year.
You'll take a bigger, but then it'll flatten for the following 19 years. Again, with the understanding that somewhere in the mid-20s, it's going to drop. The existing debt prior to that is going to drop to zero.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Jerry, just two questions, actually. The debt service for this year is in this budget is $857,448.
Right.
What does it go to in 19?
I wasn't actually prepared for that. I just don't have those numbers with me. I wasn't prepared to discuss the bond sale. Let me see. I have every other paper. No, come on. Okay. These are estimates based on, I don't have the final numbers with me. I wasn't prepared for that. So in 2018, in the Jenny Cap Fund, 139,000 approximately is phased in. In 19, it ratchets up to 598,000. And these were the preliminary numbers. These aren't the final. Then there was no large difference between the final and the preliminary. So in the electric fund, we have $60-some thousand in interest that's budgeted in 18. That number goes to 264,000 in 19. In the water fund, it's 36,000 approximately. It goes to 157. In every case, the debt service stays on a plateau. For example, in the Jenny Cap Fund, the plateau is the 590,000 range. Okay, the water fund at the plateau is 154,000 range, and the electric utility is 260,000 range.
Right, and it'll plateau like that for 7 years?
It plateaus till 38, but like I said, in 25, I believe, there's a drop down in existing debt, and then again in 38 in the utility funds.
Right, in 2025.
In 25, it drops from 403, not in this, in the debt that existed before this.
Yes.
So for example, in the budget 18, permanent debt service right now is 520,000. That will drop to 151 in 27, 8,000 in 28, and to 0 in 29. So the 20-year sale we just had only stings for a couple of years. But remember, other project will pop up.
Well,
Road work, God only knows what
oh,
else.
I understand, but 7 years it'll sting. 7 years.
So
2025.
if we don't want to increase debt service, we can't do any more projects in this town until 2025.
No, you can, there's a good way and a bad way to increase debt service. You can do it smart, or you can do it like this.
Look,
Well,
part of
what's
the
the
problem is,
smart-
My second question is, you're using $881,500 as anticipated surplus.
I think it's 861.
861, yes, I don't have my glasses on. What's the guarantee we're going to regenerate that?
There's never a guarantee. We've been very fortunate, though, that we've had a good, successful ability to rebuild that surplus. Okay, so yeah. Remember, the budget here is predicated on using virtually all the surplus. Your water fund, not so much in your electric fund, but in your current fund, that has been the history. But we've always managed to get back to at least get on that 861 plateau.
That's the same number it was last year, correct?
Yes, and I think it's the same number as it was the year before.
So what's the smart way to decrease our debt service?
You'd have to ask somebody on the finance committee.
But you made the comment. I mean, you're passing judgment and saying it's not this way, but
No,
what's the
what I'm
smart
saying
way?
is $857,000 and going up another $800,000 is not the right way to do this.
It's going
It's
up.
gonna go up another 520.
Excuse me.
Yeah, the incremental amount is what it is. It's gonna go about 520,000, which, by the way, was all part of the, the public record.
And do we
What time we did
use
this?
all of our surplus like we're doing this year in previous years?
Yeah.
But that's
In-
taking it out of the electric fund, correct?
Well, that's keeping the amount in the electric fund level for the past 7 or 8 years, okay? We've been fortunate that the electric fund is able to generate that amount of money. Problem you run into in towns where they have electric is that they do generate profits, except you're still in a 2% levy cap world. So if you say, hey, let's drop it 200 grand, well, you might not have the, and still maintain the same level of spending in the current fund, you may not be able to. You have a levy cap. It's wonderful in theory, to think that, hey, let's develop, and we had this discussion about possibly looking into a phase down of that electric surplus utilization, okay? Because in all honesty,
We have that discussion.
5
every
years
year.
from now, I don't know, I can't, if I knew where the electric business was going, I wouldn't be hanging out here tonight. I'd be probably closer to the shore right now. So yeah, it's a discussion, it's a worry, it's a concern. The investment rating agencies, though, did not have a problem with it. Okay, it seems to be, it's built into our rates already.
Yeah, but we talked about it quite a bit, that it's like the addict sort of weaning off the drug. I mean, we
Right.
have the drug, which is all the extra money in the electric fund, but eventually, if we want to start dialing it down a little bit, I mean, so,
But you know what, Trina, the transition is this, either you're gonna pay it in the electric bills, or you're gonna pay it in your tax bill.
exactly, but that's part of the issue, is that we sort of, the way that we move it around, it's what goes out and what comes in. I mean, it doesn't matter which bucket you pull it from, but,
Right, but you know
so
what?
you can say, we can all sit up here as politicians and say, we're not raising your taxes, but guess what, your electric rate went up. You know, so it's
Right.
all coming from this, everybody's the same
It's the same pot,
wallet.
basically, this type of town, yeah, if you're a taxpayer, you're probably a water payer, you're probably a sewer
Right.
payer, you're probably an electric payer.
Right.
Other towns have a little different mix because they have more industry.
Exactly, right. Right, so what that was, the whole point of me bringing this up is that we've talked about it a lot, but again, we didn't talk about the impact for the debt for next year. That was higher than even I thought about. And it would, you know, it would have been nice if Denise were here, because there's actually been other things that have come in that we talked about. One of them was for the police, that they needed to have equipment, and that's not in the budget yet either. So where's all this stuff that we need coming from?
I remember initial discussions last year when we passed the bond ordinance, we were talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of $250 annually per household for the debt service, the additional debt service that would be incurred for across the street for our new DPW garage and fire facility. And I think that sounds about right when you're talking about increasing $500,000 in the capital budget, that it would cost each resident or each home, each property, another $250 annually in taxes. And that seems to be about right, because judging by other budgets that have passed, we're looking at $163 for $400,000 out of the recent school board increase. So when you start comparing the numbers, it makes sense. The 500,000, 250.
Is that right, Jerry?
But it was about $224.
Right.
For an average residential unit, only on the tax bill. It does not include the water bill or the electric bill. And like I said, those numbers I gave out were only percentage of the billings. There was no saying that the rates were going to go up.
So we need to improve the efficiency of our water and electric operations in order to try and maintain the same level of revenue, but miraculously decrease the cost of operating those systems.
That is an option that should be explored.
It's like trying to get water to go uphill.
Yeah.
You know, the hard part is that the bulk of our water sewer budget, as everyone knows, is driven through New Brunswick, through the MCUA, okay, and depending on consumption. So it's hard to actually sit down and say, okay, here's where we're going to be a year from now, you know, or 2 years from now. It's very difficult to do that, because we have no idea what's going to pass through. Our consumption dropped 5% last year.
Right. Which is why we
cost us $115,000 in revenue, and $115,000 that wouldn't be in surplus, and $115,000 less we can anticipate. So that's $230,000 right there.
That's why we also changed the levels by which we're doing the billing, to make sure that the water and sewer are both billed at the 7,500 gallon per quarter minimum, so that the money is more or less guaranteed coming in, and we're not basing our budget on a fluctuating, we hope people use water, we hope they leave the sprinklers on.
It shouldn't be that way, but unfortunately in a lot of places it is. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to go out too far in this water source setting.
So there was never a discussion of maybe we can't afford something? I mean,
There was.
So, hey, you know, we're at a limited resources here. Maybe we just can't afford to take on this huge amount of debt. I mean, I know things have to be done. I fully understand that. We want to move forward. We all want to do, you know, have the best for the residents in Milltown. But was there ever a discussion that said, maybe that's a little rich for my blood. Maybe we might have to dial it back a little bit?
We had those discussions,
Yes.
and they've been going on for the past several years. And in fact, it was heated debates last year before even going out for bonds and approving the bond ordinance to build this facility. But the town needs the facility, and you got to bite the bullet. That's why we're up here, to make the tough decisions. And unfortunately, you know, let people know. When we built this building, it was originally going to cost us, I think, $2.7 million, and we were going to get, I forget the square footage, but almost double. The town balked. Everyone came down here and had a big discussion about it and said, no way. And council decided, okay, we'll go back to the drawing board. And about a year and a half later, they came up with a plan for half the amount of square footage, but guess what? The cost to build the building was the same amount. So sometimes you got to just take action and move forward. And we listen to the residents, but it's gotta be done. You know, if we said, folks, we're gonna pave the roads, but it's gonna cost you money, you know, are we not gonna pave any roads because people say, I don't want my taxes going up? That's not the way it works.
No, but you know, I was thinking about this, and a lot of it has to do with quality of life issues. So, I mean, if the decision is, just like you said, what do we need to do now that's not gonna cost us more 5 years from now? If I were on the council, I would have argued to do the water lines first.
We did do the water lines.
Every water line, then why are we getting all these complaints about brown water?
We can't do Mike, if we did every water main in town to resolve brown water, what are we looking at?
I'd say probably about 10 million.
There you go, see? Thank you.
That's just water, right?
Just water.
Just water? Yeah.
For all the brown water lines in town, 10 million.
We've had, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, Reggie, half a dozen finance committee meetings? A lot of these questions were brought up with the finance committee, with the experts there, with you there, with the CFO there, with the department heads, whatever, with a lot of input. This was all discussed. And then we put the budget together. You all said, hey, do I like it? No, I gotta pay for more money too. But we put a budget together that we thought was best, that we could live with. That's what's before us tonight. Now is not the time to throw these questions around. If any other questions came up, they should have come up at those hearings when we could have the experts there, when they could get the answers, and it makes sense.
I believe they did, Mr. Dixon.
Fine, and talk about it all night long, but I'm saying let's go for the vote on it, see what happens.
If you recall these questions,
I say let's vote on it.
Mr. Stankiewicz will recall that it's not.
We had plenty of meetings and they weren't brought up then.
I believe they were.
Yeah, they were, and they were answered.
But, well, that's what started my statement.
The way you're talking right now, it's not, none of them were answered.
I started my statement by saying that the mayor asked us at the beginning of the year to give a majority opinion and a minority opinion. On the finance committee,
Minority opinion?
I am in the minority. And I did not hear my opinion brought up by you at any report of the finance committee.
Nope.
So all I am asking before we vote on a budget is for my opinion to be heard. I was elected here
Apparently
the
you
same
brought it out
as you
already.
were. So I would just like my opinion to be heard. That's all. Correct, Mayor? Did you ask for that? And has anyone done it? Has anyone listened to you?
Can we call for a vote?
The discussion, I don't believe, is over yet.
Yes, excuse me.
When we're finished discussing things, then we will vote for it.
You asked me a question, I'm going to answer your question. I asked at the beginning of the year, when there are not only just budget, but anything, if there's groups of people discussing,
right.
If there's a decision made and it comes forward, if there is a minority report or a minority point of view, we definitely want to hear it. And I think we have, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I think the residents want to hear it before that they were presented with a budget. I don't see anything wrong with letting them know what goes on.
Absolutely.
I'd like to.
Good or bad. I don't even
the-
think that all the council people know what we talked about, which is, in my opinion, not the best way to do things. I mean, why, if it's a good budget, then let's say all the arguments we had. I was there. I understand that we have things that we have to do. However, I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing up the concern about what about next year. We met all about this budget before we even had the whole water rate meeting, and people have come up and people have been more and more concerned about it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having an open discussion with the auditor. I mean, it's unfortunate that the CFO isn't even here on the night that we're voting on the budget. She could explain even more. But we can't just say, here you go, here it is, we worked on it, tough, take it. You know, we should all be able to hear people's opinions about it. That's all.
Agreed. With that, will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
No.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
No.
Councilwoman Mayer?
No.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 3 ayes and 3 noes.
I vote aye.
We have 4 ayes and 3 noes.
Very good. We have a budget. Okay, next we have audience comments and questions on resolutions and bills and claims listed on the agenda. If you have any comments on or questions, please use the microphone in the center of the room. Give your name and address for the record when recognized. Remember that the comments and questions are limited to the resolutions and the bills and claims listed on the agenda. With that, I'll open audience comments. Thank you, Mr. Stankiewicz.
Thanks,
Have a
Jerry.
good evening.
Good night, Jerry.
Phil Zambrana, 40 Van Loo Avenue. I just have one question on Resolution 18166.
6, okay.
Yeah. So it says that it's the appointing the architects as the next architect, so this is the second architect?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question over the call.
This is the second architect for the project? We had an original architect?
This is the construction phase architect, so yes, it's the architect MEP and structural engineer, right, Mr. McClellan?
That's correct.
Okay. Trying to remember. So there was a conception phase architect, and that was the initial architect on the project, and through the construction phase, this is the secondary part of the project, a new phase, new architect.
So we have a signed agreement with them?
With
this?
Set in Reno?
Yes.
Well, we can't have a signed agreement until they authorize.
Exactly, but you will have one. So I can,
So long as it passes, yes, we
Yes.
would. Well, it wouldn't be tomorrow, obviously.
Yeah,
We would
yeah.
go through that process, but yes, it would ultimately create a contract.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I will close the public portion. Next, we have reports of standing committees and introduction of resolutions. A consent resolution has been prepared to cover the 13 resolutions listed on this evening's agenda. If any member of the council would like any of those resolutions pulled and acted upon individually, please give me the resolution number, and it will be removed from the consent resolution.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have 4, actually, it's the last 4, 18163, 164, 165, and 166, please.
Any others? Okay, with that, will the clerk please read the consent resolution?
Whereas pursuant to the rules of council, the council may establish a consent agenda for any regular or special meeting, and whereas the Borough Clerk has posted a consent agenda for this meeting, now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, that the consent agenda previously prepared by the Borough Clerk be approved without the necessity of having individual resolutions read by the Borough Clerk.
Okay, you've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
Make a motion that this resolution be adopted.
Second it.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, seconded by Council President Dixon, that the resolution is adopted. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Will the clerk please read Resolution 18-163 by title, please?
A resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown authorizing the closing of Janet Court for a block party.
Okay, you've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
Make a motion that this resolution be adopted.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, seconded by Councilwoman Kerber, that the resolution is adopted. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. On recommendation from both our police chief and our director of public works, I am going to recommend to the council that we deny this particular request for a block party.
Now I have a question for clarification from the clerk. Is voting aye a negative vote for allowing it?
No. Vote no if you want to deny it. Because the resolution is authorizing it, so you are denying the authorization.
So we would vote no if we didn't want this?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Correct.
I can't say yes after I say no. No, okay.
Is that
You're correct.
163. Okay, so if you are for it, you vote yes. If you're against it, you vote no.
Right.
Yes, correct.
With that, will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Dixon.
No.
Councilman Farkas.
No.
Councilwoman Kerber.
No.
Councilman Legati.
No.
Councilwoman Mayer.
No.
Councilman Revelinsky.
No.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 noes.
Resolution is denied. Will the clerk please read Resolution 18-164 by title, please?
Resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown granting permission to Fine Touch Futsal Academy, FTFA, for the use of fields at Albert Avenue Park on Sundays from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. from May 20th, 2018 to July 22nd, 2018.
Okay, you've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
I got a question.
Okay.
To get the ball rolling, we say, I make a motion that this resolution be adopted. Instead, can we say, I make a motion that this resolution be rejected
Yes.
or denied?
You
Then
can.
that is what I would like to do. Make a motion that this resolution be rejected.
Second.
I second it.
Look at that.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky and seconded by Councilman Legati that the resolution is rejected. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that I pulled as well, but in just little conversations with some council members, I believe that this request needs to be denied due to the past practices of this council that we not allow adult soccer leagues on that field. It turns out to be a massive on-taking for our public works. It destroys the field for not only this season, but for the rest of the year, where our programs can't take advantage of it. And I think Ralph went through a huge undertaking last year of reseeding, redoing, and I think half of our soccer year had to be played at Bicentennial Park instead of where it should have been due to that. So I'm requesting that we deny this particular application.
Okay. Any other discussion? So a vote for the affirmative would be a defeat, correct?
Right.
Correct, yes.
Okay, with that, will the clerk please call roll?
Council President Dixon.
Yes.
Councilman Farkas.
I
Councilwoman Kerber.
Aye.
Councilman Legati.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So not moved. So denied. Okay, will the clerk please read Resolution 18-165 by title only, please?
Resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown granting permission to Bernardo Santiago for the use of the fields at Albert Avenue Park on Sundays from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. from June 2018 to September 2018.
Okay, you've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
Move
Make a
that this
motion.
resolution be denied.
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Dixon, seconded by Councilman Legati, that the resolution be denied. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, for the same reasons as the above resolution, past practices and the condition that the field is in, that we deny this request.
Any other discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll, and an affirmative vote would be to defeat, correct?
Gotta explain that.
Okay.
Council President Dixon.
Yes.
Councilman Farkas.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Aye.
Councilman Legati.
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Will the clerk please read Resolution 18-166 by title only, please?
Resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown appointing Seton Marino Architects as the architect, licensed professional engineer for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing components, and structural engineer of the Public Works Complex and Firehouse.
Okay, you've heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
Make a motion that this resolution be adopted.
I second.
I have a motion by Councilman Revelinsky, seconded by Councilwoman Kerber, that the resolution is adopted. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I have a few questions. I'm not sure if they can be answered or not, but any help would be grateful on this. Just in reading the resolution, the number 2, where it has scope of work for a monthly fee of $8,250. Is there do we need to put an end date on this, or are they gonna, I don't know if it should be stipulated that should be a certain time period when this should end?
Mike, is there a general way to know when they're done?
The whole project's about 12 months, so that would be how you calculate it. So, there's usually a pre-construction start cost. In this case, you don't have that. So usually there's a post-construction. I would say 12, 13 months should do it. Now, it may drop off. Once the building is constructed, the bulk of the architect's time may begin to drop off. But this basically is set up so that, as I understand it at least, that it would be a monthly charge for the duration of the contract. So worst case, 12, 13 months.
So
So I hear correct that it's pretty much a 12-month, the contract is as much as he can charge the monthly fee.
Well, I guess it's, his monthly fee is $82.50, and the engineer feels that it's about a 12-month project.
Does that need to be on the resolution?
The scope of work that's included in that monthly fee would have to be met in order for them to charge that amount. If it's not met, such as Mr. McCollum is stating, that the work drops off, so now they're not doing site visits, they're not doing meetings, they're not doing, it would actually go into the hourly pricing that is in there. So that's actually how the contract should be stipulated, because their scope of work for that month, that includes that monthly fee. And I'm just saying, if they didn't do a site visit in December because it snowed every day, it didn't happen, it wouldn't meet those requirements, so they would have to charge on an hourly basis. Based on, that's what's in there for unit prices, it stipulates what's going on in a month.
Okay, thank you.
So in other words, when this project is basically done, except we've got some miscellaneous paperwork still outstanding, or we're wrapping up some change orders or things like that, they're not gonna get $8,000 as a monthly fee.
No, because that wouldn't be what they were performing.
Okay.
The scope of work, and I can clarify that with John Broder when we execute the contract with them, but that monthly, what they're putting into that monthly fee is based on a set scope of work, that if they're not meeting it, they have additional in their response to that RFP, hourly wages for extenuating circumstances or different processes that have to happen under it, whether it's a principal architect or administrative or copies or things like that.
So in order to protect ourselves, can't we put a not to exceed provision in? Which I think we should have anyway. We should just have it not to exceed, and then if it does go over, then we can reallocate, reaffirm any additional spending. But this way, we can't get caught up in something that goes on if it takes longer.
Refer to Borough Attorney.
Well, I'm covering tonight, as everybody knows. Carl Taylor, it's nice to see everybody again. I would say that generally when there's an engineering contract, there would be a set amount for it in total. There'd be retainage, and it would be billed against retainage if it's 12 month so 1/12 every month. That may be the case with this specific contract. I haven't had the opportunity to review it. Certainly, we could table it to make sure, or we could vote based on where things stand with certain stipulations. But obviously, there's a bid here. So if we went out to a bid, my concern would be it would have generally there'd be an RFP, a lowest responsible and responsive bidder under the local contract law, and if there was a total amount for the project, it'd probably be there versus what somebody else came in at, and I just wouldn't want the borough to have any concerns where somebody says you didn't start the contract. We're the lowest responsive bidder, and we came in, you're the one who went out with the specs, you're the ones who went out the contract, and now you're not following through. So I think there is a little bit of a concern with not following through tonight, but I guess in a worst case scenario, you could table it, perhaps.
And we would have to vote to approve any sort of change orders or amendment to the value of the contract anyway. So
exactly, and that usually happens after the fact, right. So you could always amend, you could always deal with an amendment later on to deal with those issues because they would be outside the scope of the actual specs of the actual bid. It's very common to have change orders in almost any engineering project of any size. So,
what was the original amount for this this level of service for the construction phase? Mike, do you have that offhand? That we budgeted for construction phase services for architect, structural engineering? And how does this compare?
Architectural fees, I would say you probably have $300,000 in the budget for them.
So 99,000 over 12 months plus 64.5 is 163,500. That seems like we're about half. So that's good.
It's less than we thought.
Any other questions?
Yes, brings me to the number 3 item. Do we already have a set of plans that are signed and sealed by the original architect, and could we use those?
Mike, could you speak to this?
I know we paid for them.
Architects usually don't sign their plans before they go to bid. What is required now is a set of plans signed and sealed for permits. Your architect that did the design is not involved in the construction project, and as a result, you need someone to have signed and sealed architectural plans. So what the borough clerk did was advertise for services associated with the construction phase, part of that being an architect to prepare drawings as necessary to obtain those permits.
All right, but didn't we pay, I don't remember, $99,000 or $69,000, I can't remember the exact number, for architectural plans that should have been signed and sealed by the original architect?
Yeah, we did go out to, for an RFP for concept phase awards.
It was a design phase, as I
design phase,
understand it. I was not involved in the preparation.
Which included plans.
We were not involved, as the engineer, we're not involved in the preparation or the, the contracts. But as I said, architects don't normally sign their drawings before bidding. They really only do it generally at the time when they submit for permits.
Why is that?
So we
It's
could
all
have,
different. Rich, I don't know, it's engineers, as you know, we sign them and put them out for bid. Architects generally don't, it's typical now, on our projects where we manage them, we force them to sign them, but it's not something they do, and that's pretty common across the line.
I'm basically trying to get to a point here is that if we kept the same architect, we wouldn't have to spend $64,500 again. Am I correct? He would have those plans and we would have already paid for them.
Councilman Gotti, I'm not sure. There's a question, the architect evidently had some business problems, as I thought was talked about on this council floor before. As a result, I'm not sure he's in position to sign one way or the other.
It's very nice that you said that he has some business problems and it was talked about on this council floor, because it was talked about on this council floor, specifically by me, specifically to say, this doesn't pass the smell test, there's something wrong, and now it's coming back to bite us for almost $65,000. That was my point. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
So is it like we're paying twice? I see, are some of the plans going to be similar, Mike?
You're asking me architectural questions. I'm an engineer, not an architect.
Well, let me phrase
since I'm the professional here, I know else for you to ask, so I gotta help you out if I can.
I'll phrase it a different way. Then I'll play lawyer.
Okay.
What if they go through and say they don't agree with some of the original design plans? Then do we have to go all the way back to the big square one and start over again?
Well, the way your clerk put this out is she set it up so that they could get a copy of the drawings. And she did it very well, and each one of the architects has been able to look at the drawings so they knew what they were proposing on. They've seen the drawings and they knew what the requirement was. So they had in front of them this issue. Okay, now, Senator Brown happens to be a councilman in one of the towns where we work. He did call me, and he was concerned, and I said, well, the borough finds themselves in a very precarious spot. They're unable to go through and get the architect to sign the plans for permits. So he understood, as well as I think the other architects. There's some other architects that did call me also. So what you have here is you have a need to have plans signed and sealed for permits. I'm not sure that they have to completely be redrawn. If it was an engineering plan, I could answer the question. Right. Typically what's required is that if I was to sign a drawing prepared by another engineer, I have to completely go through those plans and basically sign and seal them as if I prepared them, and recognize that with our ethics board requires certain things, and the architects have the same requirement. In this case, unfortunately, you find yourself without an architect that did design, and now you need an architect for construction.
Did he share, when you said he was concerned, was it about being able to sign off on the plans, or was it just?
Well, he was clear to, Mr. Sembrano was clear to point out that he was not just going to sign those drawings, and I said, I understand, and that's what's reflective in his cost.
And please don't misunderstand. Number 3, the plans for the 60, I absolutely think we need to do it. I absolutely think that this new architect should be doing it. It was just a point I was trying to make. I don't want anybody to misunderstand me.
And now with the new architect signing them, there's a certain amount of responsibility he takes with that signature. So you're getting something for it where you wouldn't have it with the other architect who is, obviously, as we said, has some business problems. So there is a benefit to you.
So even had the other architect sign them, and he went out of business or had business problems, which he'd no longer be associated with this project, someone else would have to step in, reevaluate all the plans as being the responsible party on the architect's side.
You need a professional to handle the construction project, because I can do the engineering, all the site work, but I can't take buildings, and someone has to review all those shop drawings. And one thing you should know, in addition to architectural in here, there's as your clerk indicated, there's a mechanical engineer, because there's all kinds of mechanical equipment. And what does that mean? The heating, ventilation, air conditioning, the piping, the plumbing. There's a plumbing engineer who is going to do the plumbing, and there's an electrical engineer who has to review. So that's all included in his price. So you have all 4 of those disciplines inside that number. That didn't get said, but that's in the proposal sent to Brown, which I had received a copy from your clerk, and it is included for all 4 disciplines. So you need an architect for construction. If Mr. Golden was unavailable during construction, you'd still need someone. That's right. And you need someone to, at this point, sign the plans for permitting purposes.
Will he be able to tweak the plans at all if he finds something that he's not really comfortable with, that he's...
With your approval, the answer is absolutely. If he has an issue, he's going to basically come back to the Borough Mayor Council and say, listen, we got an issue with this. Remember that this is, the architects, and you know, not to make them less important, but the real part of any building is the structural part of the building, and they have a structural engineer, and there's a structural engineer who's signing the plan, so you have that part taken care of. The architects, their end of it is the finishes, the way the doors, you know, that are opening, which way they face, the code requirements. So, and I don't want to minimize their importance because they are critical to the process too. But the structural part of the building is really the structural, and they have one on staff here. And obviously, you know, you have your own construction code official review these things too.
Now, Eric, can I ask your expertise on this? I'm betting that you would agree that if the new architect had to start from scratch, we'd be looking at a lot more money than $64,000.
Probably, yeah.
He can use what he has, and that's why the number is where it is.
Sure. Well, the reason that they are lower is because it's the type of construction. When you have an architect going in and designing every phase of a building, it's very labor intensive, takes a long time, and that's why the prices go up. I mean, look, basically, it's a pole barn, and there's not a lot of work to that. You know, basically, you know, it's a giant shed. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
No problem. Will the clerk call the roll?
What do we vote on?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, you vote.
So we made a motion that the resolution be adopted, so to pass it would be a...
Okay,
So
I'm with
for
you.
Carteller, and I texted John Bruder, you can add a not to exceed amount if that's what you want. I don't know, with, you said 12 or 13 months?
I said the contract's 12 months, so I would say that, you know, should add another 1 month just in case, because there's usually a closeout period.
Okay.
Does the council accept the change for the not to exceed?
I'm trying to figure it out right
I would
now.
recommend
So you
that
could,
they do.
you can add that if you'd like, and that would be for 13 months plus the fee for the resealing of the drawings, and that would be $171,750. And then if needed, you would be able to execute a change order if more work was needed or allocated.
Do we need to change the motion, or?
Yes, you would need to change a motion to amend the resolution to...
Will the council who made the motion and the second?
Councilman Revelin, you made the motion?
I make a motion to amend my previous motion
To whatever you say.
to the
To amend the
resolution to amend it to put a limitation of 13 months
$171,750.
for a total of $171,750. what is it, 750.
Second.
In a second. Will the clerk call the roll?
Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Aye.
Councilmember Valinsky?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
So moved. Okay, with that, we will move to the report of the Department of Finance, Administration, and Planning, chaired by Council President Ron Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, during this past week, the Finance Committee has met and gone over some applications for the position of CFO here within the town, Chief Financial Officer. We have scheduled meetings with individuals that we're interested in interviewing for this coming Thursday, and we hope to come back to council members probably at, and very possibly at a session prior to our next meeting so we can move ahead with this. If we reach a consensus on Thursday night, or if we have to go out and look for more. So that'll be all pending on this coming Thursday evening. I will report back to the mayor and to the borough clerk as to what our findings are that evening. Also, earlier today, that's what I have to look up here. Earlier today, our zoning officer was instructed and did issue a notice of violation to the owners of Ford Avenue. They've been given officially 10 days to restart the demolition and cleanup work of the site. If the work does not begin within that time frame, and this is all within the notification, municipal court summonses will be issued on a daily basis until such time as the work restarts. And that is the update on Ford Avenue.
Thank you.
And again, on our search for a CFO. If anybody has any questions about the other positions that are currently available, we are waiting for the CFO determination to be made first to move forward with any other.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, next we will hear from the Department of Public Safety, chaired by Councilman Nicholas Legati.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No report today.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from the Department of Utilities, chaired by Councilman Richard Revelinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize in advance if I have to stop and cough. My allergies are bothering me this week. A few brief updates from the Utility Department. In the water area, brown water has been observed by several residents last week. This occurrence was the result of several independent activities which gave the appearance of a longer lasting problem. However, residents have nothing to fear. The appearance of brown water is a result from essentially rust in the water mains. As water reacts with ductile iron and cast iron pipes, oxidation occurs. This causes a buildup of rust inside our water mains. When changes in pressure or flow occur in our system, water changes speed, and this can dislodge some of the built-up rust from inside the walls of the pipe. The rust then travels in the pipe until either settling or discharged. Again, this does not pose health concerns. However, if you see brown water, please call or email the utility department or myself so we can be aware of these occurrences. Some of the issues that resulted in brown water last week were hydrant flushing by New Brunswick, repair and flushing of a fire hydrant on East Lincoln, a break in New Brunswick's water main, power outages during the storm, which briefly shut down power to our pump station until generators kicked on, creating a stop and start of flow by the pumps. The borough has taken extensive efforts over the last several years to clean our water mains of accumulated rust and line them with cement, which creates a barrier between the water and the metal pipes to prevent buildup of rust, as well as improve water pressure to residents. Note, the borough of Milltown will perform hydrant flushing beginning June 2nd. A nixle will be provided to remind residents. Residents may experience discolored water during this time, and the borough suggests running water at your laundry room sink or nearest faucet before starting a load of laundry to check for discolored water. In other water news, Councilman Dixon, myself, and our borough engineer had a meeting with a private water company to discuss options for the future of Milltown's water system. As we digest the information provided, I will share this with the rest of council and the residents. In the electric department, due to high winds of the storm last week, a tree fell on the power lines at Michelin Field, knocking out the power to the lights. The tree also punched a hole in the roof of the bathroom building at Michelin. We are working to remedy the situation and will have an update as things progress. Due to the power outage last week during the storm, the timer for the lights along Milltown Park has been interrupted. Our utility department will be resetting this timer. Demolition of the old electric substation. As I've mentioned in the past, our utility department has performed a significant amount of work in decommissioning and demolishing the electrical components of our old substation. I have requested our borough engineer to obtain a proposal for the remaining work from the contractor who constructed the new electric substation. New Jersey Infrastructure Trust will allow us to add the demolition to the existing contract in order to finance the work. I have spoken with our borough engineer and the mayor of South River to begin negotiations for one transformer that was bought by the borough several years ago and still operational. However, this transformer does not meet the needs of our new system. After great effort in obtaining a buyer or home for this unit, we are looking forward to the prospect of recouping some of the costs of this unit with a sale to South River. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from the Department of Public Works and Recycling, chaired by Councilwoman Dorian Kerber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just made an observation. Some people are taking their bags, grass, and putting it in bags. Please do not put them in bags. Our borough staff is not required to take them away. They'll just leave them on the curb. Put them in the containers. That's what we request you each time. Usually it's in my monthly report when it's time for grass clippings pickup. So please start using your containers, whatever they may be, and they'll gladly pick up your grass. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from the Department of Environmental, Health, and Social Services, chaired by Councilwoman Trina Mayer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have our Environmental Commission meeting next Wednesday, May 30th. I will be bringing to the committee something that, or commission, that's something that I became aware of, an oil tank that was removed. I believe it was on the corner of Washington and Wilson Avenue, so we will have to address that. Also, I just wanted to make you aware that the permits are still available for the town-wide garage sale, which is June 2nd and 3rd. They are available here at Borough Hall, and where else, Gabriella?
Just here.
Oh, okay.
The deadline to get on the map is the 24th.
Okay, deadline is the 24th, if you'd like to get on the map.
Yes.
Yes, you need a permit and to have a garage, to be part of the garage sale.
Just to
Or
have a
for
garage
our-
sale.
To have a garage sale.
Yeah.
What else do I have? That's it. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Next, we will hear from the Department of Recreation, chaired by Councilman Randy Farkas.
Thank you. Along with the daily operations of deposits, SAC billing, SAC registration forms, purchasing requests, as well as planning for summer programs, the SAC departments have the following. SAC reminders. Summer SAC packets are available online and at the SAC office. The registration deadline is this Friday, May 18th. A late registration fee will be assessed after this deadline. Albert Avenue Summer Recreation registration is ongoing. The deadline is June 1st. Our half-day summer camp will run July 9th through August 17th, 9 a.m. to 12 noon at Albert Avenue Park. Our theme this year is Embrace What Can Be. We will focus on engaging with each other, including everyone, and being accepting of all. Fundamental Fours T-Ball has begun. We want to thank all our volunteer coaches and the people behind the scenes that helped get our rec programs up and running. The players had a great time on Saturday at the season startup. Spring soccer games have begun. We encourage parents to come out and support your child's team on the sidelines. Excuse me. Spring child yoga has begun as well. We had a great turnout, but you can still sign your child up if interested. Contact Recreation for information. Thank you for your patience in the hiring process for summer recreation and the borough pool. Letters of employment will be sent to all applicants by the end of the month. We are very limited on office staff. We would like to welcome Dave Donegan as part-time recreation assistant. You will see Dave on and off the fields, at the SAC sites, borough pool, and the recreation programs and functions. We still have tickets for both Major League Baseball games. Yankees versus Tampa Bay, which is the Old Timers Day, Sunday, June 17th, and Mets versus the LA Dodgers, Sunday, June 24th. Please contact Recreation to reserve your seat. Pool news. We are excited to announce new changes at the Borough Pool this year with new managers and supervisors. Pool badge sales will begin on Tuesday, May 29th at the Borough Pool. The sale dates are as follows: Tuesday, May 29th, and Thursday, May 31st, 6 to 8 p.m. Saturday, June 2nd, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. New this year, we welcome all parents and guardians of the school-age children to come down to the pool prior to school pickup to get your season pool badge. We will be open for your convenience on Monday, June 4th through Thursday, June 7th from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. for badges and swim lesson sign-up at the pool. The remaining pool badge sale days are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, June 11th, 12th, and 13th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We have also posted it online. As you may know, the Recreation Department was dealt a significant loss this past year as our 3 pool managers that have been employed by the borough for many years have decided to leave. We are saddened that Helen Jolly, Steve McConnell, and Mike Beardsley have decided to pursue other interests. We are sincerely grateful for their service to the borough and for the many, many summers they have served the residents in their capacity as pool managers. It is my hope that the borough will recognize their service in some fashion in the near future. And on a personal note, I'd like to thank Mike Beardsley for his assistance in helping to transition the new managers. His input and guidance were greatly appreciated. However, as the saying goes, when one door closes, another door opens. We are very excited that 3 young men have decided that they are up to the task of replacing our former managers. All 3 are enthusiastic and ready for the challenge of making the pool better than ever. There will no doubt be hiccups along the way as they take over, so I ask for everyone's patience and support as our new managers get into the routine of running the pool. With the help of the pool staff, supervisors, and recreation department staff, we are looking forward to another successful pool season. And one final note, tomorrow night is our annual free rabies clinic, which will be held tomorrow night, as I said, from 6 to 8 p.m. right here at Borough Hall. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Okay, any old business to come before the council this evening?
I have something, Mr. Mayor. So we have just passed the budget, and one of our old favorite topics is still hanging out there, which is trees. So I think every once in a while I have to bring it up again. I know it's not in the budget, but I know we've talked about, we have ways to possibly fund that, and we've talked about it, and I believe we came to some agreement that we wanted to pursue tree trimming to alleviate line damage. And the reason I bring it up now is it was a picture-perfect day out today, and you know, I was wondering if we have any plan for what we are going to do so we could do it in the nice summer months, and hopefully if we could get going on that now, we could save ourselves some money next year when we have heavy snow or other things that would cause that the trees to damage our lines.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. You want me to leave it at that, or should I
No,
elaborate?
please don't. That's not, it's not, you can't discuss that.
No,
Right.
we've discussed several opportunities, and we're
Okay.
looking at ways to utilize funds in-house,
Right.
because we believe it may be more cost-effective, as well as assist with the training of our personnel by doing trimming around lines and things, but that we are still awaiting an answer. And we also are accumulating the list more finitely to determine which trees are the most important and provide some additional information for the time that we would need to go out.
Being handled by your department?
Yes. Well, I spoke with Ralph and John.
Both?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Then they're on board to work together.
So we have like
for this.
we have a plan.
We do, we're
that-
just making sure that we can do what we want to do, and then if that falls through, we'll have to go out to bid for it.
Great, great. And by the way, I mean, they did a fabulous job last week when we had that big storm. The utility department, I was one of the houses that lost power, and I thought for sure when I heard all the sirens that it was going to be hours and hours, and an hour later, the power was back on. So I appreciate their hard work and, you know, not such great conditions, and it was a pleasant surprise to see the lights go on so quickly.
Any other old business?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just one more thing. If it's possible, I'd like to ask the borough attorney to look into preparing an ordinance for permits needed to play on our fields. I think, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but we denied 2 requests for resolutions today from 2 outside groups, but I don't think there's anything that's going to stop them from rolling up on Sunday, because I don't believe we have an ordinance that we can stop them.
I've already reached out to John Bruder, our
Okay.
borough attorney, on that last week when we had
Oh,
our,
good.
yeah,
Good.
when I
Thank
was
you.
at the rec meeting.
Good, thank you very much.
You're
That's a great thought, Randy. It really is. Because you're right. They could just roll up and
Right,
take
just
over
roll
the field.
up, right.
And the problem is that when these leagues come rolling in, your kids can't play on the fields, and we're paying to maintain them, so it makes sense.
That's the point.
Any other old business?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just have a question, and I don't know, I haven't heard anything about it, is the website update. I know last year I brought it up, it was shot down. This year we passed it to spend the money and get a website moving. Gabriella?
Yes, John Bruder just approved the contract for the Civic Plus. That was in the Youth and Government report for the attorney. So the contracts have now been signed by us. They've been sent to Civic Plus for their signature. And as soon as they receive those contracts, we'll be setting up our timeline. I have already informed the department heads that we will be scheduling meetings returning after Memorial Day, that they've been given information, that they're supposed to be compiling their information for their pages so that I can start with Civic Plus moving forward on the migration and design. And as we progress, we'll obviously talk to council and give you more updates, but we were reading on certain clauses in that contract to be dealt with because they needed a little bit more clarification and coverage. So we're in the right direction. Hopefully, once we meet with the department heads and I sit down with Civic Plus, we'll have a timeline. It's just going to depend on how much information I get from the department heads for their particular pages as well.
And I would just put out there that I would welcome anyone in the community who's got a suggestion for things they want to see on the website, not necessarily the formatting, we're going to leave that to the professionals, but if there's a certain information you're always looking for or want to see, please let us know so we can try to incorporate that in the new website.
A search bar.
There will be a search bar. There's quite a number of features that are on this website. Once we get a little closer, I will do a presentation on it, so that way we can showcase the capabilities, the new Notify. So there's a lot on the Civic Plus website. They're award-winning for New Jersey government. They're very easy to navigate. They have obviously search functions. Each department will have its own page. They'll have quick links on the front page. They'll be able to spotlight information that's imperative, update immediately, as long as you have those rights to live edit. There's also a notify me function that'll allow people to sign up for it to say if the recreation department updated their page, notify me. The clerk's office updated their page, notify me. There's ability to share on social media. There's a number of things, and once we have a little bit more that I can go on to present to everyone, I'd love to do a presentation so that everyone has a little bit more of a glimpse as to, you know, what we were doing and the reasons behind it. But it's a little hard to, again, I can say a lot because in my head I see it and know it, but until I have something to show you, it's really hard to describe.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other old business? Seeing none, any new business to come before council this evening?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Sir.
I know I have spoken to the borough clerk about this, but new business moving forward, I am going to want to try and get a resolution or an ordinance on the books for once homes are abandoned in the borough of Milltown, there be a registration fee. Currently, we don't have anything on the books, and I think banks are taking advantage of that and leaving homes abandoned for up to 8 and 9 years, some homes in Milltown. My suggestion is that Gabriella and well, Gabrielle is doing a lot of the research, I just gave her one. We're looking at other towns that have some ordinances, is it an ordinance?
It's an ordinance, yes.
Ordinance on the books that say, what'd you say?
I have copies if you need some.
Okay. This is nothing written in stone, just something that came in my head was the first year that a bank takes over a house, and these aren't the exact numbers, we'll get, there's a $500 fee. If it stays empty for the second year, there's a $1,500 fee. If it stays empty for a third year, the bank should pay at least $5,000. This would make them move into doing something with that abandoned home, rather than let it sit there, take their tax break on it, or whatever the case may be, and they just sit in our town for 7 and 8 years. It's horrible. And I think we should really consider this when I have all the information. Gabriella and I will get together and we talk to our borough attorney as well, and it's something that this borough pass in the future. Just wanted to give everybody a heads up.
Councilman Legati, it's actually something that we were trying to work through the utility department as well, since one of the best indicators is your utility bills. If you see no usage or the absolute minimal usage, it would send up an alert so we could find out, is someone actually at the home or not? And if you see it for months in a row, that's a clear indication. Well, I would go one step further and say to put a certain amount of money in escrow, because
Yes.
one of the biggest issues we have, and I know across the street from you, is a tree falls on a house that's abandoned, trying to get the bank to take action is absurd.
Yes.
We could hire our own people. One of the reasons why the borough hasn't hired our own contractors to address some of these issues is because we didn't have a budget to spend the money until tonight.
It's all in the research that Gabrielle is doing for us.
And that's why I spoke to Councilman Legati about this. A number of towns have addressed this in different ways, and I know a few towns who've done the escrow account. What ends up happening with the escrow account, though, in a lot of situations, is that the banks then just rely on the borough to do property management, and there's entire businesses that do very well in property management. So instead of us them having to pay for a property management company, they just let the money sit in escrow, because we can only give them cost, not cost and administration and cost and things. So that's one of the reasons that we're researching it. There's a number of different ways that towns are managing foreclosed and vacant homes, and in different ways, and some of them are seemingly more successful, and some of them have seemed like a great opportunity and then have in a few years turned into quite a task for the municipality to manage, especially when you talk about hitting thresholds. Because once you do grass cuts and it exceeds a certain amount, now we're going out to bid on property management of vacant homes that aren't ours, but we have to do it. So there's a number of things we want to take into consideration before we present a finalized idea, which is why we're getting some regarding what the towns are doing, and then also getting feedback from the municipal officials who are actually implementing those ordinances, not just what's written on paper. That way we have an idea of what kind of work we're going to be putting ourselves into, not just a basic idea.
Now, I can speak to it because I have a vacant home across the street from me. It's vacant for over 4 years. All we want is neighbors. And I think that's the attitude of most Milltowners. You just want a neighbor. You just want someone to take that home.
I can make a suggestion. In towns this has happened, and I know our attorney, Mr. Bruder, will look into this. In the ordinance, have a definition of what an abandoned house is.
Yes.
There are individuals that have the financial means that may shut their house down for 6 months. In the wintertime, they go down to Florida. That's not abandoned.
Right.
No,
That's why you have to have a definition of an abandoned house.
Yes, no, we want bank, we're really specifically going after bank-owned homes that have been.
I'm just suggesting get a definition of an abandoned
There's
house.
also other, I've seen other towns work through defined processes of liens on the properties for those things. So instead of having necessarily a budgeted amount, instead of having an escrow, that you violate them when they don't meet those violations, then you have a very specific process outlined in ordinance that says, you have this, you have 10 days to apply. After 10 days, it's this. After this, it's this. And then at that point, it's a lien on the property. And that's how and then banks don't want the liens because that's a very high percentage that they're paying of interest to do that. So there's a couple ways that towns are addressing it, and that's why we want to flush out all the options so that we do one that's manageable for us, not just beneficial, but also manageable.
Any other new business?
So Nick, we don't have anything to address that at all now?
On the books for an ordinance for abandoned homes, we have nothing.
So
Well, we have
Property maintenance.
property maintenance, our code enforcement officer.
So if those houses that are foreclosed and have sat empty for 3 years, if the grass is 3 feet high, what happens?
They can put out violations.
He gets
to
a
the
violation.
companies. And there is a process to put a lien on the property that stands. The ordinance sometimes makes it a little bit easier.
Do they
to
get
follow.
fined when they don't do? I
They
mean,
can-
are
they
we
can get
getting
something.
income from?
Well,
They can get that?
I'm not too versed on all the abandoned, bank-owned homes, but the one across the street from me, the bank does as minimal as possible. They come once a month to cut the grass so that they don't get the violations, and they just do the bare minimum to keep it going so that they're not getting any violations, so that a lien doesn't oppose them.
Because I just passed a house this week that the grass was super high. I don't know if it's
Well,
abandoned.
then you would
On
have to
North
let
Main?
our code enforcement officer.
Code
Yeah.
enforcement.
Yeah. It's been abandoned for years.
You can issue violations based on property maintenance, and if there's, I know that our health inspector, I send her out for standing water.
Right.
If it creates a
Right,
health
true.
code issue, or if the wood piles on the ground,
Right.
and, rodents and things like that. So there are a number of ways that we try to address them. One of the biggest problems is though if there's a bank owned, but it's an obscure bank, or then it's done by property maintenance.
Right.
Sometimes to issue the violation becomes a chasing game.
Right.
So it becomes a little bit harder. So I think that the ordinance that Ms. Legati would like to see is something that allows us to be proactive rather than reactive
Good.
in this situation.
That's right.
Any other new business? Seeing none. Audience comments. Please state your name and address for the record.
Steve Regis, 25 Lincoln Avenue. 3 quick points. I'll try to make them as quick as possible. Back in February, I approached council about possibly coming up with some money to do some repairs with the museum. Any chance of that happening this year? This was back in February. I had actually handed in a proposal to do some work on the museum.
It was a few
The roof.
$1,000s, right?
It was like $4,500
Yeah.
for the porch roof. I was just wondering, I had asked if you could put it on the agenda. I was wondering if,
We haven't put it on the agenda yet. We were waiting for the budget to get passed. As I mentioned, we were chopping a lot out of there.
Which we just passed tonight.
It is a fully encompassing budget for the entire year. We've been running on basically borrowed money for the year. You're allowed to use a certain amount of a baseline budget until now, and now that the budget's been adopted, we'll see what our expenses are currently and then what's remainder. So I'm hopeful that we can scrounge up $4,500.
Okay.
I won't make any promises, but
Okay.
we'll do what we can.
okay, very good. Second thing is, any update regarding the Schweineman property? As far as I know, the Boy Scouts were supposed to be doing some work on it, or anything happening with that at all?
They're working away.
Working away, okay.
Have you been by there lately?
No, I actually haven't.
Go by there.
Okay.
It looks,
Okay.
they worked every weekend for
Oh, really?
a month and a half.
Okay, I'll have to take a look
Yeah,
at it.
go
Okay.
see
All
the
right.
work they're doing.
Finally, I just want to throw my 2 cents in regarding the debt service in town and comment that Councilwoman Mayor made regarding trying to plan for the future, debt service. For as long as I've been living in this town, the mentality of councils, past and present, have always been keeping taxes low. And I guess when you look at it from the outside, that's pretty good, but it's actually hurt the town in the long run, because a lot of capital projects were put off with that mentality. I remember when Joyce Kimber School was condemned, new plan was, put to the town as far as for a new school, and they voted it down. So what ended up happening, kids went on split sessions. So you ask yourself, is that, what we want, the kind of services you want in town? And then by the time the new school was built, they went with a smaller plan, ended up costing the same amount of money. Then a few years later, they spent money to do an addition. And that has been going on in this town forever, and it's just killing us. water line should have been replaced this 10 years ago. I remember I was looking at old articles in the museum back in the early 70s. They were talking about a new firehouse. Now we can't afford it. This is back in the early 70s. I remember coming across an old article. This is back when Mayor Crabeel was our mayor. And they were talking about a new borough hall. That time, nah, too expensive, we don't need it. It wasn't until the roof fell in we finally decided, well, yeah, I guess we do need one. And the same thing with the substation. Wait till disasters happen, and then it ends up costing us a ton of money in one shot. I think what the town should do is just try to get on a plan where every 2 years, or whatever, do a water line. Every couple of years, do a street that needs to be done. Every couple of years, you brought up the trees. We keep waiting and waiting, and if we wait until we can afford to do it, then we're all going to be dead. So nobody likes to see taxes go up, but I think if the taxpayers knew, well, my taxes are only going to go up so much per year, you know, these projects have to be done. I mean, I would rather have my taxes go up a little bit than to have brown water and no electricity. So, you know, you talk about trying to come up with a plan. That I think you have to start thinking about that, you know, again, just doing it on a gradual over a 20, 30-year period. You know, like I said, every 2 years, do a water line. Every so many years, do this. Every so many years, do that. That's the only way to do it, because we have this mentality, this New Jersey mentality of putting it off, giving it to the next guy. And I hate to say it, but that's just the way the states run. And that's why taxes are so high, because nobody's, you know, dealing with the problems now. So, again, just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take your time.
My knees. Hi, I'm Melinda Granieri, 315 Northbrook Drive. I guess I should direct it to Dorianne Kerber.
Yes.
I have been trying to get 2 trees taken care of for a very long time. You and I had communication for quite a while. You said it would be taken care of by the end of April. I sent you an email about a month ago, and I heard nothing. What do I have to do to get my trees taken care of?
Well, we are reviewing the list between the DPW and utility department, but now that the budget's passed, we can work in.
They keep telling me, you keep telling me I'm on the list.
Oh, but you're on the master list, correct. I put you on about a year or 2 ago.
Yeah, exactly,
And-
exactly. And I have some real concerns about one branch on the tree that could hit my house quite easily. And with these storms and the winds and all kinds of stuff, it's really kind of dangerous.
I understand. I'll make sure that they go out and check it
So you're saying now that the
out.
budget's been passed,
Yep.
They
it
can
will
start
be
spending the
addressed?
money.
Now they have the money to
Getting
work
the
with. Right now
estimates
they
out,
have it.
Okay.
bids out, and get moving forward with it.
Mr. Everlinsky,
Yes.
I am one of those people who uses 2,800 every 3 months, but I pay it for 75. I'm a senior and I live on my Social Security, and yet I'm the foundation for the water department, along with 300 other families. I think something should be done about that. I don't think we should be carrying the backs of people who are trying to keep their water bills down. Okay, I'm paying a lot of money for very little use. I think I should be paying for what I use, just like I do for my electric. And I need you to be aware of that, because you seem a little, well, you know, somebody's got to pay for it. It shouldn't be me. I've been here since 1970, and now that I live alone in my home, I don't think I should be paying for everybody else's water. It's as simple as that.
I'm sorry if I came off aloof, but the fact is.
You did.
We need to pay for it, and we decided to maintain the 7,500 gallon level because that was the numbers that we could work with this year.
But it's not fair to people like me.
I understand, and
It's totally unfair.
we are working on it. We will review this every year. As I said during the meeting, when a lot of residents came up and spoke, and unfortunately I wasn't able to be here at the meeting, but
I
I was
know,
here.
I was, yeah.
we will be reviewing this every year, and as soon as we are able to dig ourselves out of this hole, we will reevaluate it. I mean, we propose to hopefully drop it down to a minimum being 5,000.
No, I know that. That was mentioned
because
at the
that's what
last
a lot of
meeting.
other towns have done as well. But for right now, for budgetary purposes and the ability to do the math and understand the monies that we need to come in, we maintained that 7,500 because that was an established baseline as it was. We do understand that
Again,
it is a hardship.
It is absolutely a hardship. It's very unfair, very unfair. And I'm sorry that that's what the borough needs, but maybe there should be some sort of redistribution going on that's a little fairer. Because then my sewer rates are based on the 7,500 also.
Well, your sewer rates were initially based on your actual reading. We have now changed that to be the
Exactly.
7,500 because of confusion within the billing department from residents saying, wait, you're billing me
Well,
for
we knew
7,500.
that once you stopped putting the rates on the bill.
I'm sorry?
Once they removed the rates from the bill, they used to put the rates
Right.
on the bill, both
Okay.
electric and water and sewer. That disappeared. Okay, little lack of transparency in my mind.
Well, I know our department down there has it all, and I believe the rates are published on the website.
Well, that's all well and good. It's awfully nice to pick up your
Understood.
cardboard bill and see it on there
Understood.
in green and white and blue and white.
Right.
Anyway, I'd like you to work on that, please.
We-
I have one, am I allowed a third
Oh, sure.
question?
Go ahead.
Obviously, the firehouse is fait accompli, whether I like it or not. What happens to the two firehouses that are seemingly obsolete? Can we take over those properties? Can we use them? Can we sell the land to mitigate some of the bonding that is going on?
Yes, they are borough-owned buildings, and the council is going to have to make the decision on what the disposition of those properties is going to be.
Yeah, I don't think our town is in a position to continue to preserve everything, unfortunately.
I would agree. Preservation is very expensive.
Yes, it is,
It's
and
extremely
often
expensive.
it's too late.
Right.
It's absolutely too late by many, many years. So I'd like to see that addressed also.
Right, that's going to be something I'm going to imagine that next year's council is going to have on their plate to...
Can't, this year's can't?
Well, they can start, yeah, but it's going
Okay.
to take them some time. Usually it's a little bit easier once this other project is on its way and you get the council seated, because they're not going to be moving out at least till next year
Right.
from those buildings. So
Right.
it's something that they're going to, I know the fire department has already started talking about their move and various things like that, so.
But I
the
did hear
groundwork is-
something about, those buildings should be preserved and we should have a museum and whatever, and I'm all for museums. But this can't afford it.
Right.
We can't do it. We can't do it.
Oh, I mean, the existing buildings, they're having a hard time.
I know they
keeping
are.
up with,
I
yeah,
know they
yeah.
are. Because there was a suggestion about making that whole area a museum
On South Main.
space.
On South Main,
Exactly.
yeah.
I don't think it's viable. I don't think it's viable. Anyway, I had my say. Thank you.
Before you
Mrs.
sit down,
Gregg.
I have something to say. On June 4th, I'm going to have a meeting with the seniors at the senior center, and it's an outside organization coming in, and they are assisting seniors based upon their household income for some of the utilities. Obviously not electric, because it's our own electric company.
June 4th?
June 4th, 1 o'clock at the senior center.
I'm sorry, what time?
1 o'clock.
Okay, I think that's a really good idea. I think that our senior center needs to be much more proactive. When you look at senior centers in other communities, we are wanting in a lot of ways. And I think that should change. I really do.
Okay.
There could be a lot more offered that probably wouldn't cost that much. Anyway,
Okay.
that's another thought. Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Mrs. Grenari. Phil?
Phil Zambrana, 40 Van Loo. Councilman Revelinsky, about the water company research that you're doing, could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, we're
'Cause that's a
evaluating
great
whether
idea.
or not the borough is the best means for us to operate the water system. A lot of towns have private water companies that operate. They've sold to private water companies, profit-making entities. And they have to evaluate your system. They determine what the valuation is. We may think we're sitting on a gold mine here, and they turn around and tell us, well, once you add in your debt service from water projects, as well as what it's worth, we're gonna give you $1 million. Good luck, but by the way, everyone's rate is going up because you're going with a private company. We also have to consider the fact that while we buy our water from New Brunswick, we discharge our sewer to New Brunswick, and they bill us based on water usage. So if we were to buy our water from somewhere else, they're gonna charge us sewage based on sewage flow, which means I&I, which means every time it rains and everyone's sump pumps going into the sewer, all the additional flow that goes in there, the bills are gonna go through the roof. It'll be an unknown, truly, because the sewers haven't had, while they haven't necessarily collapsed, there is an I&I problem around town. So there's a lot of ins and outs that I didn't wanna, we are looking into it, but there's several variations of the type of agreement you could format, whether it's just their personnel, whether they do the billing for you, whether you lease it to them for 20 years, or whether you do an outright sale. There's pros and cons to each.
It's proactive at least, which is nice to see.
We're trying to find solutions, so.
Regarding the transformer that
Yes.
you're going to sell, what's that transformer go for estimated? Is there any way to tell?
Right now, junk. And the
Junk?
reason for that is because it costs so much to move. We've found companies that take antiquated equipment that is still viable, and they're interested, but they won't take it off the property until they have a need for it somewhere else. So the problem with that is it's sitting in a flood zone. If it floods, now it's not worth anything, and we got to pay to remove it anyway. So South River is evaluating their system. It was initially bought because we needed it, because our system needed that transformer to survive.
Okay.
With the new substation, we have sufficient power that we don't need that unit anymore. And initially it was, let's put this thing on a flatbed so that South River can use it, and we can use it depending on who's in need. But it's just too big. You need road closure permits and everything to move it. So at this point, it's become more of a burden on us than a asset. Okay. So if South River's interested and they're gonna foot some of the bill to transport it or demo, or they're gonna buy it from us, you know, I don't wanna tip our hand too much, but if they're interested, fantastic.
So I'm glad to hear about the website redesign. I don't know, Gabriella, it looks like it's something that's near and dear to your heart, something to get going and to get finished. We've been in discussion over the last several months because I was sort of like, didn't understand why it was taking so long to get the contract. I understand it's done now.
Well, yes, in this, the verbiage is done, it's not done until it's signed by Civic Plus.
Right,
So
right.
we are currently, it is now being sent to them, so they should have it.
Is there a timeline on when you think, again, loaded question, is there a timeline, is there a goal to have this new website up and running?
When I spoke to Civic Plus, their estimated timeline in general, from start to finish of migration and design, is about 3 months.
Okay.
And that timeline is also dependent on responsiveness from the staff involved in the design. It's also dependent on approvals for, you know, migration and those types of things. So it can go, 3 months is what they estimate, but it also will depend on, that 3 months doesn't start today. It starts when we get some of that information.
And internally, is there a project manager that's been identified?
Me.
Good.
I mean, it's,
Okay.
it's, we haven't identified me, but yes, this is the project
So
I've been running.
looking forward to that to, because I think it's something that's been sorely needed over the last 2 to 3 years, especially when it comes to transparency and having things available. The one thing that I would say is something that you could add to the website is to set up automatic payments. You can't do that right now?
That's actually not through the website. That's the issue with the automatic payments. That's actually through our payment processing system.
But something that could be taken perhaps into...
It's something that we have discussed. It's been brought up by our tax collector and our utility collector, specifically for those accounts. The cost is substantial.
Really?
From what I was understanding in our conversations and what I've been privy to. Convenience fees alone, I know you guys pay certain ones of those on CityNet, but to add in ACH and things of that nature, it can become quite costly to move forward. One of the primary systems that does work with our current payment processing, which is Edmunds, and I know it has been researched probably every year that I've been here, which is now 3 times, or almost 3 times, to see if this is something that we can move forward with. I know other departments have also wanted to do digital payment, whether it's recreation. I know we've considered it for dog and animal cat licensing. It's just sometimes cost prohibitive based on if you're collecting $6 on an animal license fee to then pay a $5 convenience fee.
Yeah, just a thought.
Just sometimes.
Just a thought.
Yes,
just a thought.
No, it is something we continually look into.
So I'm glad to hear about Ford Avenue and that we're giving them 10 days to respond or to do something.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens in 10 days when they don't respond?
Municipal summonses. Come before the judge, we'll put a fine onto it.
Okay.
Or, I can't speak for the judge, fine onto it or whatever she levies against them. But
So
they'll have summonses to come into court.
All this time, what have we done? Nothing? Just let the owner get away with that, or?
No, we didn't let anybody get away with that. Went to the owner during the winter, which was a harsh month. They have to install a water line. They have to do that, above ground, not us.
Right.
Have to get permits and go through all that, which, from what I understand, they moved forward in the winter as to what they could do. Now that it's getting nice out, let's go. You got everything, let's work together. That's why, after speaking with them, and we're going to start, it stopped today because we said, that's it. You got 10 days, or you start getting daily. Now it was daily summonses. I can't tell you if it's going to be $5 a day or $5,000 a day. That's up to the judge. The judge attaches the fee.
How is the notification rendered to them? Via regular mail, email? How did they get this?
I was told it was an official notice from the zoning board. I believe he spoke with them directly, with the parties involved, and told them. Now, whether they got the actual paperwork in hand today, I don't know, but he did talk to them directly.
Okay. Since we're getting a Ford Avenue update, and I assume it's going to continue to happen, I think it'd be a great idea to get a Public Works firehouse update on a monthly basis, if nothing more, to tell the folks in town, hey, here's what we're doing. And by the way, this is what's coming down, next week or next month or something, because frankly, up until this time, I still haven't seen, I don't think anyone in this town has seen where the $15.8 million budget comes from. So I think you'll get a little bit more. I'm not going to say everybody's going to be happy with everything you tell them, but at least if you give them something, if some sort of communication, it'll go a long way.
Absolutely.
Then I had one question concerning trees. I don't have any trees that I have a problem with. I don't know anyone that has, but I keep hearing about this master list. So of the money that was received from PSE&G.
You can't.
That's a confidential agreement. We're not allowed to.
I don't know how.
Okay, so it's not a confidential agreement. It's not a confidential agreement. Okay? It's not.
Council cannot respond to any questions regarding
So
PSE&G.
why don't I just say a couple of things and then I'll leave, okay? So I OPR'd the PSE&G agreement, okay? And I was able to meet with a lawyer for PSE&G, okay? This town received $464,000 in July of 2017. From what I can see, about 130 or so were spent on a utility truck and a bucket truck, from what I could tell. I'm not really sure, okay? I've heard in the past that, there's a resolution for $200,000 to do tree trimming, but I'm not really sure. I haven't seen that resolution come through, okay? So there's an Exhibit A. It can be spent on a number of things. You've had the money for, going to be in July, it's going to be a year, okay? You have an annual reporting requirement, okay? I'm just sort of wondering, as this wonderful lady got up here about her trees and started complaining about her trees, is that something that's going to go through? Councilman Revelinsky stated something about internal funding. Is that the internal funding we're talking about?
You want to answer?
No.
I'm not making a comment.
No, you cannot comment. You're good.
The reason I bring this all up is because our borough attorney, Mr. Bruder, said that this is a confidential agreement, but you could Oprah it, which didn't make any sense to me, okay?
Make any sense to me either.
If it's a confidential agreement, you shouldn't be able to Oprah it. So the minute that I Oprah'd it, in the agreement, it says, okay, that PSE&G gets a notification, okay? So then someone calls me out of the blue to ask me, what would I like to know? And they gave me a bunch of information, annual reporting requirement. There's no time limit on the spending. It's supposed to be spent on these things, including electrical line clearance, okay? By my estimate, taking the 464 into account, subtracting the 130 for the trucks, subtracting $200,000 for the tree line clearance, you probably have about 130 or something left, which I don't know what you're going to do with it. But I do remember earlier in the year where the Little League came to you to ask for some funding for some utility poles or some lighting on Michelin Field. I think that there's stuff in this Exhibit A, especially the utility poles, that's something you can kind of help them out with. Even if you don't give them more than like 50%, it's something that you could take into consideration. But it's not a confidential agreement. So, you know, think about it. $200,000 could go a long way to taking care of a lot of tree trimming in town. But, you know, I've come to every council meeting, okay, for the last 2.5 years. Okay? That got by me, and you know why? Because you didn't put a number next to the agenda item for $464,000. If I would have seen $464,000 or anyone else here in town would have seen that, they would have asked the question. But because there was no dollar item there, it went right past me. That's what I'm talking about, transparency. You can't sit here and make decisions and say, it's out of our hands, it's confidential. It's not confidential. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Could I just get a clarification? Sure. Earlier on, Council President Dixon, you said the zoning board?
I never say zoning.
Officer.
Zoning officer.
Maybe I'm.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
No,
thought,
give me reference, maybe.
Yeah, no, I thought I heard zoning board and fines by the zoning board, but I think you meant zoning officer. Is that? I just want to be sure that that's. I understand that right.
Oh, if you're talking about with Ford Avenue?
Yes.
If I did,
Oh, no, it's okay.
It's zoning officer, not zoning board.
Okay, just wanted to be clear on that.
Zoning officer, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Carolyn Viola, 17 DeBonis Drive. I just had a quick question about what came up from Councilwoman Mayer, the financial planning topic that has come up at the last couple of meetings that I've been here live and seen on the broadcast. What is the plan to start the financial planning? It sounds like this just keeps getting discussed at the council meetings, and it's a contentious topic, I can tell, amongst the council, and it's something that I think the residents, in fact, I know the residents want to feel more confident about the financial planning of the town. So my first question is, who's accountable for moving that forward? And what would the timeline be on that? And what's the plan to actually get something of that nature put in place?
Well, I can answer it because I was preparing a response for council comments, which I'll just indicate now. At each one of our committee meetings for finance, it was brought up, what about the plan for next year? What about the plan for next year? Now, we're only given so much information to work with in a short amount of time. The budget, what was utilized last year, what they're asking for this year, and why, and how much of that we can chop out without taking away from the services to the town. So there's very little ability to say, let's add to our dream list without adding a burden. Now, this year we were faced with the water rate increase because of the $300,000 shortfall in the water fund. So that took up a lot of our discussion. However, we would always go back to what about the future? And that was, throughout the year, we're going to continually review what's going on in each department and determine where we can short money or where is needed a little bit more to make things run more efficiently so we can plan better for the future. While it's not a matter of necessarily increasing in an additional tax point, it's a matter of making sure that before we put any additional burden on the residents, we're operating this as efficiently as possible. And Councilwoman Mayer has been keen on that. Ron and I have been keen on it as far as making sure that now that the budget's passed, following through with the departments and making sure we're not losing money. I mean, I know one of the things that burdened me last year was the pool losing $35,000. And I know that it's discussed, well, the pool wasn't designed to make money. And in my mind, well, then why did we redesign it anyway? Just because it's broke doesn't mean we can't try to fix it. So every department, it's on them to stay on top of their department heads and find out what's going on, what they need, where they're lacking, and are they doing the most with it, and bring it back to the rest of the council and say, so-and-so needs this. For example, Dorianne and I discussing the tree work. Is it more cost-effective for us to have our employees in-house trim the trees and do the line work and possibly utilize some other funds to surplus that than to go out, hire a contractor to do the work, have all the oversight? So these are the little things. The water department, we have 5 or 6 employees handling water, sewer, and electric, both maintenance and improvements, and documenting, just going back and saying, is this even broken? Operating our valves, meeting the new DEP standards, which is why we're looking at the future of, do we have to go to a private water company? Because it's becoming such a burden. Is it worth us taking it on in-house, or is it better off to put it out to someone else, let them handle it, so we can focus on the governing aspects, the rec department, the utility collections, all the other aspects of the town to make that more efficient. So we are working on it, but we're not necessarily saying we're going to put away $200,000 or $300,000 this year to do something next year, because in most budgets, most of the time, when you do that, the money's gone before you use it.
I understand that. I guess what I kept thinking when everyone was discussing it on the council was that even just beyond identifying actual funds that need to be set aside, just having a plan in terms of what can be spent beyond what we have. You know what I mean? So it just, is there something that you as a council have that's a macro vision of the financial health of the town?
I can answer that. It's actually your
If I may,
CFO.
I think
He was going first.
Go ahead.
when we have the finance meetings and we talk with all department heads, and I'll go to utilities or anything, doesn't make a difference. We ask them, what do you need? Do you need a new truck this year? You don't need, I mean, these are things that we can budget for. These are things I know in 3 years, you're going to need a new truck. 5 years, that's budgeted for. What Mike has done, and I'm going to refer to Mike, he has done there is a master plan as to what has to get done with the infrastructure of our town, which is the most it's the most costly thing we have to do. We have to reline pipes, we have to replace pipes, that's the most costly thing. There is a plan. Am I correct, Mike? There is a plan. Mike has put it together. It's been in place for years. The problem is with us coming up with the money to supplement that plan. And we try. Mike comes up, he talks with us different ways. We talk about grants. We talk about going out to different agencies to help us with this. And that is what Mike does. He comes to us and says, look, we have to do this water line this year. All right, can we get it from one of the infrastructure grants, infrastructure grant or something? Can we do it? Because that money we just don't have. So there is a plan in place, but there's not a plan, well, other than we know trucks have to be replaced, equipment has to be replaced. And I think the mayor said it best. Every time we flooded, millions of dollars worth of our equipment ended up in East Brunswick in water, because it went that way when we flooded. And you couldn't recover a lot of it, and if you did, it was no good anymore after the damage. That we try and recoup naturally through insurance and the best we can do. But how many times is the insurance, and we've been told this, how many times can you keep going to the insurance pot? You're in a floodplain, get the hell out of there. So now we say, okay, we're building, now help us. Can you finance? Now we can't do that. He told me to get the hell out of here. Give me a way to get out of here. How can I afford this?
Well, even some other initiatives that we put in place last year, we did a 10% increase on water. And that was to cover a $150,000 bill that we had an annual re-up when New Brunswick or MCUA looks at the type of sewage that you pump to them. It's solids, how much liquid. Mike, there's some other technical little aspects to it.
The quality.
The quality of the sewer that you pump to them. And they turn back and they say, well, it was a little thicker, it was a little thinner than what we thought. We're going to charge you more money based on set criteria. So they give us that and we say, we got to come up with $150,000. And we did that. The problem was, we had 2 force main breaks on a force main that's from 1920, and other water main breaks that chewed up all the money. So we weren't able to pay off the 150, and instead incurred 150 in debt on other things. So that then rolls into the next year. So we try to be responsible and plan ahead, but it doesn't always work out in our favor, and we don't want to put too much in reserves, because then it puts too much of a burden on the residents. I mean, you know, we hear tonight from I'm sorry, I forget your name, but Mrs. Granieri, that, you know, she's paying, she's a little heartbroken over her water rates. Well, if I were to raise the water rates and say, don't worry, we're doing projects in a few years, I don't think that would lighten the burden on them. So we have to be a little bit cautious on how far we step in order to plan for the future. But the focus, I can assure us, everyone here, the focus is there.
So I think that my final comment.
May I answer the question?
Yeah.
This is a true statement. You can call New Jersey League of Municipalities, you can call any CFO in another town. Your chief financial officer is not supposed to just do capital planning, not just to do what's immediate for your budget. This person is supposed to spearhead the planning and distribute it to the council, discuss future plans, not just the 3-year capital budget. They'll tell you, you're supposed to plan even beyond that, be it 5, 10, or 15, 20 years out, based upon what the needs of the town are. So it is ultimately spearheaded by the chief financial officer of any town.
But my answer to your question is, if you look at your agenda, it's the Department of Finance, Administration, and Planning. It's the council that you elect. It's our job to come up with that. I'm not
It's your chief financial officer to come up with those.
So, in other words,
target
Denise
things.
would tell us that whether we needed to buy a new water line or whether we needed to buy a new substation?
Well, that's what her job is.
So
As
she
chief financial
makes
officer,
the
she does the
decision
planning
that
as well.
we need a new water line?
Well, if we give her the information, she's supposed to put it in the plan.
No, we have the capital plan for Mr. McClellan. I don't see how the CFO comes into deciding what projects we spend. She has the funds available, but how could she decide what we decide is the tier 1?
The planning portion, she would come up with the plans, work it out.
Okay, well, even so, why hasn't that been done for the last 5 years then?
It has been done, but when things occur, we have to take a
just
step
took out
back
the
and say,
budget.
And we're
we
going
can't
back
do
to
that
the-
this year.
We're going back to the famous kick the can down the road
Right.
that Mayor Stever mentions all the time. So I'll tell you what we spoke about time and time again is I am, as I've said over and over again, in favor of having a plan. A plan that puts, whether we have the money or not, puts it, at least prioritizes the projects. That, okay, the number 1 priority would be to fix, you know, just for an example, the water lines or the sewer line. And then, if that would drive the budget, not the budget driving the plan driving the budget. That would be, in my opinion, and that's what we discuss a lot in the Finance Committee, a sound way to do. Right now, what we do is we meet with the department heads, we get what they need, you know, we go over, we say, okay, we could do this, we can do that. But all of these other things are outside of the general revenue. They're capital projects, which we would have to bond for. So that isn't even, you know, when we talk about the getting together to go over the budget, that's the, just, you know, the rec budget, the utilities. So that's not the long-range planning that needs to be done to satisfy our infrastructure and all of the quality of life issues that I discussed earlier. So I would say that it would probably be Council President Dixon, because he's the chairman of the Finance, Administrating, and Planning Committee, and he would work with the CFO to see that Mr. McClellan's plans have some direction, so that we could go in the direction of, and I had that, remember at a few meetings ago, I had the capital plan where there was just a bunch of empty space because we didn't put in even our, you know, the wish list. You know, if we hit the lottery someday, what's going to be our first thing that we're going to go and buy tomorrow? Right. We don't have that now.
So I think in the spirit of transparency that's come up a couple of times, feeling like there's consensus amongst the group and that everybody's on board with that as a need for the town and for the residents who are taxpayers and stakeholders in the growth and infrastructure in this town. I think that that would give residents more peace of mind knowing that they might not be happy about their money being spent, but at least they know it's being spent with a long-term vision in mind and that there is some form of consensus. And also just the amount of numbers that are tossed around at these meetings, it gets a little overwhelming. I know that the budget is a publicly available document that all residents can get access to, but there's a lot of conversation that happens in this budget hearing that throws around additional numbers. And I really am adamant about the suggestion that a presentation that breaks out what you outline based on the budget number, the appropriations, what's coming in, what's going out, and going line by line would really make the residents feel a little less like there's some smoke and mirrors going on behind the scenes if it was just outlined and each of you could speak to your departmental budgets and it would just all be in black and white rather than furiously scratching down all the numbers that are being tossed around. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, just to quickly answer, if you want to wait, you saw that when I tried to discuss that, we didn't want to have that discussion tonight. Right. I tried to bring out exactly what we said about the plan, and then that's where we got be quiet and just go ahead and vote.
Right. And I don't think that's a very good way to run the council in the town either. Everybody has a voice, and we need to hear them out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Seeing none, I'll open up council comments. Yes, sir.
I would just like, as council president, to thank the departments that really came up to the plate during our last storm. As we know, we lost power out without town. Fire department was there immediately. First aid squad was there, and our guys were there to restore the power quickly. As we all saw on TV, and they're still talking about it, there's still areas of New Jersey that are without power. Those are the ones that had, and I'm not criticizing, don't get me wrong, I'm public service, because you go down a priority. I've got a town with so many people in it, I'm gonna go there first. I'll get to your town, but you're a little town, you're not my big worry. When you have your own utility in town like that, they responded quickly, they got a job, and they got the lights back up again. I was estimated by public service, guys that I know, said if that was public service repairing that, it would have been a day and a half to 2 days before that power was restored. Just in the amount of time that it takes them. Not that they're not doing anything, they're repairing other major breaks. So I'd like to thank our utility department. I think they did an excellent job. And that's my comment.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The Little League lights have been brought up, and I just wanted to let people know the lights are a cost of $450,000. That's what came up in a meeting previously when we discussed it, and it hasn't been brought up to council. Of course, you know, the budget wasn't passed, and I don't believe it was in this budget, but we don't have a CFO here to let you know that. But it's $450,000 for the lights to be installed at the field too, that was requested in the past. I just wanted you to be aware of the true figure.
And I'd like to add to that, you know, we talk about needs and wants. I mean, whether the county's given us money to match funds, yeah, we would like to spend money on park improvements, but we have existing facilities that need repair before we go and decide we're going to expand on something like lights. For example, Michelin, you know, needs a ton of work. The lights there haven't worked for years, and now with this power outage, we're going to have, or the tree falling, we're going to have to repair the roof over there. So we got to take care of what we have before we start expanding onto other things. So that becomes a budgetary constraint. I know on opening day of Little League, I was confronted by a couple of people, and they said, hey, you know, it's great you raised the water rates, but you turned down the lights. I said, well, I have needs and wants. You know, I have residents who need water, and we need to pay for that. Those residents don't necessarily want to pay for lights on a field that they're never going to have the opportunity to use. So I think that that plays a long way in some of our decisions. You know, we try and look at the whole of the town and not just one group here or one group there. If we can do it, fantastic, but we can't do it at the expense of every resident. So.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to address Councilwoman Kerber. Councilwoman Kerber is a little mistaken. That $450,000 was a worst-case estimate. That is not the cost of the lights. You were here at the meeting. You heard that we need to do a ground study to find out the ground, which would cost about $10,000. So let's do that. Let's do the study of the ground for the foundations of the lights, and then we'll find out the real cost of the lights. But to say that it's $450,000, that is not true. That was a worst-case estimate. Mike, is that true?
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I think we have to base our estimates here on worst case. I mean, look what happened across the street. Originally, we bonded for a worst case estimate of 15-point-something million. The contracts came in at 10 point, correct me if I'm wrong, 10.1, 11.1 with the other options. So yeah, we saved ourselves $4 million, but you have to be prepared to make those decisions on worst case scenarios. So when it comes to worst case scenario, Councilman, my job, I think, and our responsibility is to fix what we have before we go and expand things that we don't need.
Well, your job shouldn't be to put out incorrect information. That's what the problem is.
I don't believe I did.
I didn't say you did. I said Councilwoman Kerber did.
Mr. Ligotti, pardon me, Councilman Ligotti, do you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
I sat up here and I debated whether or not I would make this statement, but I think it's needed to be said to not only the people that are here tonight, but anybody who's going to watch this or is watching it now. Everyone that sits up here is an elected official. Everyone that sits up here is an equally elected official. Not one person up here has more power than the other. There is a council president that's only sole purpose that I am aware of is that he will fill in for the mayor if the mayor cannot run a meeting. Okay? So everybody needs to understand, I have just as much power as the 5 other people sitting up here. No one up here has more power than the other. And I think everybody up here really needs to understand that. I think the people out there listening need to understand that we are 6 equal elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council comment?
I'd like to add to Councilman Ligotti's, and I think you'll agree with me on this one, that the real power lies in the residents. The residents have the power to tell us. So even though we might not have seen eye to eye tonight, the people who came up here and spoke, I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate the people posting on Facebook and the folks that message me and every other council member here about what's going on around town, because without your feedback, we can't do anything. And without your encouragement or disapproval or anything, we don't know which way you want us to go. So we go and do what we believe is the right thing, which is why you elected us to be here. But please continue to reach out and speak up.
And to that point, I would add that I fully agree. I welcome any comments, questions, and we do, it brings up the point about the website. The website is not very interactive yet. And I'm sad that we passed this in February and it might not be till the fall that this gets going. However, what we do have on the website is each of our emails. And if we encourage people to reach out and to get their comments, questions, which we also did at the meeting, I think that those people deserve an answer to be responded to. I think I've heard on Facebook a lot of times, and I've gotten emails several times on our borough email, where people have not been answered by someone that works in Borough Hall or by someone sitting up here on this dais. And I think that we are elected as the representatives of the people, and they deserve an answer. Whether it be, I'm not sure of the answer, I'll get back to you. But I think sometimes it becomes frustrating when people are trying to get information or trying to engage with someone or a department head or whoever that may be, and if it's crickets, it's very annoying, and it just shows that we're not doing our job. So I ran on this, and I feel passionately about it, that we need to be accountable to the residents, because as you said, they are the most important resource for us here. So it goes back to the website. You know, there's a lot of things. I would encourage people, if you're watching from home or if you're here, check out one of the Civic Plus websites that I looked at was Red Bank, which is fabulous. I mean, they have things, and I thought when we had the power out the other night, speaking of how you're trying to get information, I was on my phone and I saw on Facebook, well, what's going on? I called the utility department. I don't know, but you know, so if you could go on the website and put in, they have a issue tracker, that you could see that somebody has put that issue in, and then we could be proactive about letting people know. And one of the things that came up too was that the Nixle alert didn't go out. And I would tell everybody that there's a police Nixle, but then there's also all of the other Nixles, so you have to sign up for the different departments now. It used to be one, so if you don't get a Nixle alert about a power outage, maybe you need to check to make sure that you're getting the correct alert, not just from the police department, because the police don't send out if there's a power outage.
No, they do not.
Right, right. So that was one of the
Police department has
confusing.
specific emergency situations. Public Works and utilities have their own.
Right. And also about the website, I appreciate Councilwoman Kerber meeting with the seniors about the water rates and some. I had actually, right after the meeting, looked, and it would be nice if we could have put something on the website, because there are several resources if it's a hardship for someone to pay their utility bill. But as you said, Milltown is a special case because since we own our own electric and water, a lot of the help comes to people that have private water, not public. But there are definitely, and we can put a link on the website as well, but I appreciate you talking to the seniors about that. And I just wanted to clarify about the budget. Yes, I was on the Finance Committee. Yes, we had a discussion. I wasn't voting no against the budget that we had put forth, which we took a lot of time to craft. My concern was, first of all, that the CFO wasn't here. Secondly, there were items in there that should have been included, in my opinion, that weren't. And thirdly, it was more of the protest against having any plan in there going forward. It wasn't, there's nothing wrong with, you know, what we came up with to spend on, but I feel that there were items missing and not being as transparent and accountable as we needed to be with what we had talked about with the plan. And also Mr. Stankiewicz came up with numbers about the debt service that were a little disconcerting for next year. So that was the reason for my vote on that. But that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other council comments? Okay, mayor's comments. I'll make them brief. Firstly, there's a patch of pavement at the end of Borum Avenue for whoever's department that may be. They did a water main repair, and it still rocks, so it needs to be paved. So somebody can take care of that. I just want to take the opportunity to kind of tie some comments together, and I think it's pertinent. A statement was made about that the council members are elected and they're equal, and that's so true, absolutely true. And we've also talked about planning and long-range planning and things like this, okay? My suggestion has always been to the council, and I still maintain it, because all the statements up here tonight were really good from everyone. And my statement would be this, is you're all equal. You're all equal council people elected by our residents to do a job. And my suggestion would be to do this, because Councilman Mayor is talking about we need to have plans. Each department, each council person should have a written plan on what their short-range and long-range goals, including capital expenses, should be done. It should be in a folder that could be left at the clerk's room or something that could be put online with this new website, so people understand. So people come in and say, okay, what's going on in this department, or what's going on here, or I keep hearing rumblings about something with the sewer. They can go on and they can take a look and say, hey, they have a plan for this. Councilman Farkas has the plan with the lights. It's a great project. It really is, to put the lights up for the kids. Is it the #1 on the hit parade? Not necessarily so. But here's the thing, folks. If you put together these plans, and for as crazy as you might think, because you're only limited by your own imagination for what your vision is of your department, put together plans, even if you just mention them. Because let's face it, we're not all going to see things that we want to do happen during our time here. But if you leave it for posterity and it becomes a plan of the borough, hopefully in the future when there's money available, whether it's through grants that we find or the debt service comes down or whatever might happen, if you make the plan, they'll build it.
Exactly.
Use your vision, use your opportunity of your years being here to put together something for our town, okay? We're all not going to be here forever, but you know what? Make your impact. Make a little brochure, make a little file, and have it there. You know, I know, look, we have our, every time we do the budget, you got to sit down, this one needs a backhoe, this guy needs a pickup truck, we need to do this, we need to do that. That's the easy stuff. But what I agree with Councilwoman Mayer, and it's something that we've done. The engineer has a great amount of plans for capital expenditures, from sewer to water to you name it, he's got it. But as council people, it's our responsibility to put our programs together. So the day comes when you decide you don't want to be up here anymore, you can take that file and you can hand it to the poor guy that's coming in behind you and say, this is what I did. Don't erase any of it, please add to it, okay? And then when you get together and you have your finance meetings and things, you bring them to the table and say, this is our vision. And we should have a shared vision, regardless of politics, regardless of anything else. Because you know what? I don't have the best ideas in the world, and neither does anyone here, but collectively we put something together that's meaningful for our residents. So that's all I got to say. I think a lot of great things have been said here tonight by everybody, and we can argue the points back and forth. But you know, in my mind, any council person who comes up with an innovation or a project or an idea, it's always something that has to be thought of and tried to plan for, because you people are worthwhile. You're here for a reason. People put you here to do it, and we all expect the same and deserve the same respect. So that's all I have.
I'd be happy if we just had a plan.
All right. And with that, Nick, you know what to do.
I'm ready. I move that Resolution 18-167 to enter into executive session be approved by council, and that council will enter executive session immediately following the vacation of the council chambers by the public.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Legati, seconded by Councilwoman Mayer, that resolution is adopted. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, we have 6 ayes.
Okay, so moved. We are now in executive session. Have a good evening.
I was going to say, me too.
Give me a second.